Well, I spent the entire summer and fall last year sleeping on the ground, so, and intense for months on my little vacation. So yeah, bed feels pretty good to me. Cool air feels pretty good to me. Oops. It's being live streamed already, huh?
We're on the air.
Hey, Coop, I think it's funny when I'm seeing Manny and Chris and Robbie with these, with the professional mics and the earphones and everything, and we're just kind of sitting here.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm my closet's right behind me. I'm in the closet.
Oh,
not in that.
Now's a good day to come out of the closet. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Is that like Jeffrey from Toys R Us on your shirt?
It is, but it's actually I'm my closet's right. It's what is it? Was it Jeffrey? Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
I can
read.
There
you go. Yeah. All right. What's up, Monkey's uncle? Are these the Patriot front? Yeah.
YouTube Live.
All right.
Oh shit! I need to get a link to send back to TGP Facebook.
I'm gonna send it. I'll send it on the chat right now to you right now.
Okay, brother. Thank you.
Cool, no problem. And
Coop, make sure you let both of our fans know we're live.
Yeah, that's gonna be about what it is.
Well, and Selmy will probably listen.
Probably. Do. God dang. I need like polarizing film over my window so I don't look quite as I look like that monk on the what was that movie from Dan Brown, the book, the monk, the Opus Dei monk.
Oh, the Da Vinci Code?
Maybe, I can't remember. All those books kind of swirl together.
Yeah.
But I read them all, but none of them are all that great, so they all kind of...
Everybody told me I needed to read the Da Vinci Code because it was awesome, and I read it, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah, he's not a good writer, but...
But he sold like 80 million copies.
Man, God bless him.
I mean, Stephanie Meyer is not really a good writer either, but she sold, tens of millions of copies of that Twilight crap.
At least J.K. Rowling can turn a phrase.
Oh yeah, no, I love me some Harry Potter.
Yeah, she's a fantastic writer. Actually, her prose and
she sold enough to buy a castle in Scotland.
God bless her too. Especially after all the coup of taking over that whole series, not inviting her. That was pretty cool. When they had their little anniversary deal.
Yeah,
and she
I saw. And then they've also renamed. There are uber dork leagues that do Quidditch. They call it Quidditch. It's not real Quidditch because you cannot fly around on broomsticks. But they changed the name to Quad Ball. Like, folks, the only reason anybody plays that is because of its connection to Harry Potter. So what the hell are you doing?
Crazy. That is crazy stuff. But there's a backlash coming.
Oh, it's already started.
Yeah. It's not going to be good.
Russ and I are on the front lines.
It's not going to be good. No, we will be.
How much it burns up here.
We'll be on the front lines watching people like overdo the backlash and being like, told you this is going to happen. Oh, look at my little penny.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
She ran. She couldn't even hear you, but she ran.
She ran? I'm not that terrifying to children.
There's
my own daughter usually sticks around longer than that.
Scary army white guys. Ah!
Coop, you need to come in here with the full beard and stuff. That's the only way that needs to be your trademark.
The one that's on our logo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to grow that thing anymore.
It looked like you had a leather vest on.
I don't know what I had. No, it was an Adidas hoodie, actually.
Well, that's
close enough.
I think I like leather vest better, though. Maybe my next pick. I'm going to change it up so that my bare face is on the next one, and maybe that one won't be a leather vest.
As if your size isn't enough. Like if you're in a bar fight and there's some dude rocking a leather vest, like, just walk away.
Well, I'm pretty close
to
the white trash muscle shirt today because I'm so hot.
That too. Yeah, that's that too.
Hey guys, just FYI, I've got a Marine buddy of mine watching. So,
oh, cool.
Hey, does he have some crayons to eat?
Take it easy. Take it easy on the measy.
I know, right?
I won't do any math or any grammar questions.
We speak them slow. Oh,
God bless him.
Yeah,
I love me some Marines actually.
Oh,
this is we are allowed to pick on, and no one else is.
yeah.
And I'm sure he'll bite back.
Is that so? Like between Army and Marines, is there like, are you both insulting each other like we're smarter than you, or is there some like specific insult that they make to you that is like particularly hurtful, or the other way around?
Well,
you know what I mean?
There's not.
Or you know what I mean.
But
you know what I mean.
We're smarter than the Marines. The Marines claim they're tougher than us.
Okay, so they would say they're tougher. You'd say you're smarter.
Yes.
And obviously disagree with, each would disagree with the other's statements. Okay.
Probably,
All right.
I'm not sure they can understand our statements.
I was going to say disagreeing wouldn't. It'd be like teaching a pig how to sing. The pig just walks away confused.
Let's see here. All right, so Robbie's here. Oh yeah, so there's the link.
Okay, cool.
You guys already covered that? Robbie sent the link.
Yeah.
Is that in chat?
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Yeah.
That's affirmative.
Why can't I see it?
Oh, I don't know.
There.
I don't see it in the chat.
Let me send it again.
Maybe you were blocked it from the chat.
It's weird. I heard someone.
When last time I logged in, when you guys went live, I couldn't chat as Anthony Koopman, so I switched my profile over to Two Grumpy Bastards. And I could get in. So maybe I was. I hope it's inadvertent. I don't think I ever busted in on you guys' chat before.
It's all good.
Let's see. So it's there again if you need to, if you don't see it.
And I just sent it to both of your guys' private IMs.
Okay.
I
didn't
Maybe
see
get it off of
but
that because I still don't see it in the chat.
Yeah, I think I must be not accepted in the chat yet or something.
I'm thinking it's probably the CIA that's infiltrated our chat. So they
probably.
Yeah.
I think this has happened. This has happened before. I don't know. Maybe.
Endless Ranters.
All right, now, hey, Coop, I have to ask this question. Given the shit that I got because of my wildly reflective glasses from last time, is anyone going to bring up Chris's glasses?
My glasses are always reflecting. I can't help it.
I think it's probably the CIA that's infiltrated our chat. So
Turn off your radio.
turn off your comms.
Yeah, that was me. I had overlapping. I was just checking the link.
Cool.
Sorry.
All good.
My other glasses are mildly reflective, so I put on these really cool ones that don't reflect quite as much because Coop sent me a note and said, "Hey, everyone's getting blinded by your glasses. Change."
Welcome. Someone
Monkey's
that's
uncle.
always received shit for reflective glasses, welcome.
Oh, and I only have to wear these to read and see the computer up close.
Monkey's uncle is in our chat asking if these are the Patriot Front guys. I was gonna be like, these are the guys at January 6th. Those FBI agents that were there, like turning on the glasses, like,
how are you doing, fellow protesters?
Why, thank you for having me on your podcast
yes, I'm
tonight.
very upset with these policies, just like you.
Here's this bottle. Throw it at the police officer.
I don't know why it's on fire.
I don't know if those pictures are. I don't know why that's funny. You have no idea. Those guys could just be douches from Jersey or something. You know what I mean? That were like all dressed in like their in their cutoffs and they're like their jean, like stonewashed jean shorts.
Those are the guys that got to Ray Epps.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you think so too? Okay. I'm saying I really have no idea. I mean, it looks like it. It's a funny thing to laugh about. I don't know. Just this group of guys that just look out of place. That's funny. Okay. We're about ready to get. I don't know. Robbie's still looking down. So.
Oh.
Stare at Mr. Happy later.
Out of the way before we start.
And this is episode 114, eh?
Yep.
All right.
Wow. You guys been at it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been like 6 years though.
I think
Oh,
Chris
is it?
has been the one most at it, though. I mean, he's
What is
one
it,
of the founding members.
Yeah, I
Founding
think
hosts.
I've been on it like probably 105 of them. Skipped a few over the years. I don't know what year we started. We started at the end of like our first episode we recorded on like December 29th. So it's always confusing. It was like maybe 2018.
Who were the original ones on there? Do you remember?
Just me and Jaden.
Okay. You guys kind of started the whole thing.
It was me and Jaden and this guy named Taylor Crampton, who was a member of the Adam Carolla Podcast Facebook group, a sassy gay, but, you know, wanted to be a part of it. But then he got in trouble. Like we were like, we had one phone call to like kind of talk about how we were going to set it all up. And then he got in trouble in the group for picking a fight with Rich Skeller. That's right. Who's now in our group? Rich outlasted him. Rich outlasted him. He kicked Rich out, and everybody got upset. Crampton. Yeah.
Oh God, I got in a fight.
You might
with
remember. Yeah. He's a unique individual.
I keep meaning to join that Facebook page, Coop. I'm just getting old and Alzheimer's, and I forgot.
It's all right.
I'll get in there. I know that you have some. I know you have some fans you want me to engage with.
No, there's some very funny people over there. That's what I enjoy about it. Very, very smart, funny people. Ugh.
All right, man.
I'm going to be squirming quite a bit, guys. I didn't take my Oxy for obvious reasons, but tore a ligament in my back about a week ago, and I'm sitting upright is like the worst thing. So if I might be a little squirmy tonight, I apologize ahead of time.
I'm still stuck on what would the obvious reason be. Like, what's the problem? What's the hold
Hands in
up?
his pants.
Down those pills, bro. Down those pills.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've podcasted when Coop has done that before.
He's
It
out
leads
of it.
to an interesting episode.
Gets
It
real
goes a little rough.
peaceful.
It's a little rough.
I like just things kind of come out of left field.
I've only been on this Oxy for a week, guys. It's not a normal routine.
It's okay. Well, you said you were from
not
like
a lot.
Washington, Washington State, like the Seattle area. Things are pretty bad up there. You never know.
God. Yeah.
You'd be down at the chop zone scoring Oxy.
We're going to have my lifelong friend who's a psychiatrist, had been practicing in Seattle for, 25 years or something like that. And she's done a lot of the, she deals with a lot of the addiction issues.
Mm-hmm.
Been in that field for quite some time. And so, yeah, we're going to have her on kind of discussing that and the fentanyl stuff and giving some really good technical voice to that. I think that would be kind of cool. And she's great. She's been a friend of mine since I was in 6th grade. So
Scary out there. You can't go to a party anymore and just, snort cocaine with random strangers.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I would never do that. I would never do that. But like people need to realize like, hey, that's what you've been doing for a long time.
Those days are gone.
Like they sell like tests on Amazon now. I think you can buy like packs of those tests to test your cocaine to make sure it doesn't have fentanyl in it. Boy, that's crazy.
All right, guys. All posts are done. We're good to go.
Okay.
Good. Record the audio, Chris.
Oh yeah.
See, Russ, it's a team effort over there.
Do that. They like getting teamed.
Teamed and creamed.
Team effort.
Lord.
It's gonna be a good one.
3, 2, 1.
Good evening, Endless Ranters. Welcome back for episode 114 of your Endless Ranters podcast. Thanks for watching, listening, and subscribing. We truly appreciate the support. My name is Chris, and I'm one of your hosts for this evening. I'm joined by the one and only Robbie Spotlight. What up, Robbie?
What up, homies?
What is up to you, homie? And then there's the man with the plan. It's producer Manny. What's going down, old man?
It's good to be back after a couple of weeks MIA. Life.
Yeah. My favorite. I'm not going to talk about breakfast. Well, we might talk about breakfast tacos later, but I'm glad you're feeling better about that, and we're glad to have you back.
It was, life just gets in the way like that, and the whole breakfast taco fiasco.
Mhm.
Water under the bridge.
You're fine with it, yeah. Yeah. Well, I told last week, I told you that she did apologize and said that you're all the same taco.
We're actually in mourning right now because Choco Taco is we're losing it. So no more Choco Tacos. Yeah.
Hey, the Choco Taco died long ago, so
there hasn't been a bigger tragedy to you folks since the Mexi fries went away, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Choco Tacos, we've got two special guests tonight returning from the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast. It's Coop and Russ. You see them right there. If you're watching, you see these two guys. Thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Good to be here.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Always fun.
Yeah, good. We're back. I guess the last time we were on your podcast, which is called, again, the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast. It's found everywhere you find podcasts. Is that correct?
That is correct. On every wonderful source of podcasts in the universe.
And you guys do a great show. I listened to your latest episode today. You cover a lot of like culture, politics, much more than we do, and in a much more serious manner, but also very funny. So I commend you guys on that. Thank you. And then I really like your podcast too, because whenever you guys talk about your favorite TV shows, I'm always like, I like that show too. So it's like that brings America together, I think, watching the same shows.
That's about all we've got now. That in high school football.
Yeah.
Well, only some of the TV shows. Some of them are going a little bit too far, but at least we found a few.
They are. Well, there's so many of them too. We're going to get to entertainment. So here's the plan for the evening. So we wanted to pick Russ and Coop and Russ's brains about some current topics, maybe some geopolitics, things like that, some light stuff, before we get to the more serious matter, which is their favorite and our favorite and some of our listeners' favorite war movies. So that's going to be fun. I've wanted to do this for a long time, and this is going to be great. So get strapped in. We're gonna do this about 4 hours, right, guys?
Either get strapped in or get a strap on.
Oh, Russ, come on now. We're going to cover those movies at a later date.
Said like a power bottom.
Yeah. Best military porn movies. That's the next one.
Oh yeah, like the porn spoofs, like military porn spoofs. Yeah.
Even I can't watch those.
Yeah, there's probably been some Top Gun. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll cover those later. But so guys, so you've covered some of these topics on your show. Again, Two Grumpy Bastards. Check it out, subscribe, all that. But I'm curious about this subject, and I'm sure you have some thoughts on it. Have you ever been? I've been paying attention to politics for about 30 years, pretty closely. It's just kind of something I'm into, right? There's times where I don't, but there's most of the time I know what's going on or what the trends are. Have you ever heard? Has there ever been a time where you've just heard it discussed so many times, like so many articles about like national divorce and civil war and all these types of things over these hot political topics like abortion, Second Amendment, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, it's getting dangerous. First, for those who don't know, I'm gonna plug myself for a second. I've got a book out there entitled Schism.
Oh yeah.
That took on, and this was actually I wrote it several years ago before it really got even worse and a lot more specific. And it's not written from an advocacy standpoint. It's written to tell you how bad it can get. I think two things. One, those who talk about, hey, we'll fight about it. Most of them have never actually been in a fight. Real civil wars are very nasty affairs, and I can promise any civil war inside the United States will not have rules of engagement. It's going to be
like
awful.
People can't, like, you're not going to be two sides lining up in a field. It's just going to be, you're going to be at a mall, and the other side just going to,
it'll be people poisoning.
It's going to be rough. Yeah,
it'll be people poisoning the water supply and using crop dusters to spread biotoxin and
get dirty,
shutting down the interstate. And you've got to remember that there's a lot of areas out there that are farmland and a lot of folks who aren't near farmland that'll starve. So that's part of it. And
not to get to a conspiracy, not to cut you off, but you just mentioned, poisoning water supply, that sort of thing. I was just reading that in San Francisco, which I grew up around, they were talking about monkeypox possibly in the water or something. I don't know. Chris, did I send that to you? I think I sent it to you guys.
No, man, and please don't. I've seen enough monkeypox.
Yeah. So
because they always put a nasty picture at the top of the screen. Like
they do.
Yeah.
They do.
The monkeypox, San Francisco, the way it's been spreading 95% of the way. I can't imagine why that's.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Damn, man, they better crank up the fluoride.
Yeah. The second part of the whole national divorce thing, and I don't know if Coop and I disagree on this, but we have a fairly bloody precedent against national divorce. We tried that about 160 years ago, killed almost 700,000 Americans. I'd be fine if some people wanted to leave, but I still want some of the farmlands. I still want some of the ports. You know, some of the land itself I kind of like. And I think we've kind of.
Yeah, I want to be able to go see the Grand Canyon, right? I'd like to be able to see the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
without a permit or without a passport.
Yeah, I think in the last 10 years we've kind of awoken out of this artificial coma of unity that was imposed after the Civil War, and then it kind of got regelled by World War I and World War II and papered over with the Cold War. And then as it was beginning to split again, you had the attacks of 9/11. And because America really is only truly united when there's some kind of, it's either forced on them, like the North forced it on the South after the Civil War, or there's some kind of national unifying, existential threat. And without that, Americans have a tough time coming together. And it's almost like we feel we need to fight. Unfortunately, most people who are the loudest about it, they don't really know what that means. And if somebody fights back in a nasty way, they're going to get really shocked. I think a lot of folks are used to being keyboard warriors. A lot of folks are used to, going to a protest or something. Folks, I'm just telling you, having seen real civil wars, having seen real divorces like that, it's not the movies and brass bands you're envisioning. It's going to get very nasty. And I just don't know that I can do justice to how bad it can get. I hope we never have to go through a national divorce. I have unfortunately been warning of just that possibility for about the last 8 or 9 years. It's one of the reasons I wrote Schism, is because I feel we are at loggerheads over so much. And the biggest thing that keeps the nation together, in my opinion, is being willing to live, both sides being willing to live by the rules. And when one side ignores those rules, the other side sees no incentive to obey them. And that's where things are going to get bad.
I think that's true. I agree. I think that specifically to our country right now, but at the same time with people in general, there's like just humans in general, when there's a perceived, whether it's real or a perceived need to unite, it happens really quick. But when people perceive that, well, we don't I can still make 6 figures and live this lifestyle and also be rid of all these people that don't believe in what I believe. And, they have this fantasy about it. I don't know. Yeah. It's I think the national divorce thing is kind of a fantasy talk of an organized split, like as if things won't kick off. Things will kick off.
There's no way. How can you do that? All the urban centers are blue, and all the agricultural natural resource areas are red. So
you'll have some weird things where there'll be like we'll have like a trade dispute where it's like, no, you can't ship these lemons from Texas to Oklahoma because the politics are so different or something, and then somebody tries to, and then there's like a standoff at the border of like 2 states, two United States. It's going to be really real weird situations that it would create.
Yeah, what I don't think most folks understand, because again, we've been so used to living the good life. You can go down the street and get your organic tomatoes, and you can head to the gas station, even though it's higher in price, get your fuel. I don't remember who it was, but I heard someone once say that civilization is 9 meals away from collapse. Once you go about 9 meals without,
sure,
you're going to start to be willing to do just about anything. And when folks don't realize that, most people don't grow their own food anymore. Okay. You're not refining your own gasoline.
You can't make your child's insulin.
Yeah. You can't
you could be a great farmer. You could be awesome. You could be a chemist, but you still can't make it yourself. So
exactly. We're so interdependent on all kinds of things that have made life better when it's peaceful. That if it does go to hell, then I think a lot of people are in for a nasty surprise, because it's like you said, Chris. It's not the fantasy that people think it is.
Well, and to be fair, I'm not sure if it's like, fantasy. Maybe that's not the right word to use. It's more like you're not really thinking this through as to like human nature and all of human history when this has been attempted. When neighbors are really just don't like each other and just like, okay, let's just draw a line and you stay over there, we'll stay over there. Everybody cool. Yeah, everybody's cool. And then that just doesn't work out for very long. When there's
if you notice, most tribal warfare throughout human history has ended in the extermination of one side. Mm-hmm. I mean, the tribes all over the world, from when we were tribal in Europe to North America to Asia and so on, when you went to war, I mean, there are reasons why about the phrases throwing the babies from the city's walls. I mean, you wiped out the other side completely.
Yeah, well, it's kind of scary stuff. I was just curious because, like they say, history repeats itself, or rhymes or whatever, or that, today, people at my age don't like the current music that young kids are listening to. Well, then neither did people my age 50 years ago. But this particular topic, since the mid 1800s in our country, I'm not sure if it's been talked about so freely, like written about so often. Like there's so many headlines about it by prominent journalists.
I'm sorry, Chris, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go for it.
I was just going to say, looking at this from a different angle, kind of the causal angle, I think there's three really important factors that make this
What's that mean, causal? What?
Like
causal. Okay.
Causal. I'm sorry.
I was like, is that like an acronym for some, military?
No, it's right behind your. If you reach down and press, it's right behind your frenulum. Actually, that's where your causal is. But I think this is different. I think this is a, the age of Aquarius kind of shift here going on, mostly due to two big factors leading into it. The education process in this country. The Generation Xers, I knew what the Federalist Papers were. I understood the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I understand it. People's stark reactions to a couple of the rulings that came out of the Supreme Court this session tell me that those Americans don't understand the Constitution at all. They don't understand that this is a constitutional republic. It is not a democracy. And there's a whole bunch of rules that come out that way. They also don't understand that rights aren't granted by the government, they're defended by the government, written right there in the Constitution. So that lack of constitutional understanding. The second part is, of course, the narcissistic influence of things like social media and the "Gee, Johnny, you're a good boy no matter what" attitude. The helicopter parents. Being part of a group, being part of a big group now is gauche, right? It's all about me. It's about my sexual identity, or it's, all that, my fucking, excuse my language, my YouTube channel or whatever. And the third one is something nebulous that I can't quite put my head around, but it's almost like there's this insanity going on among groups in this country, and part of that insanity is they speak the loudest, where there is absolutely no... it's like not Kyle Reese. Private Hicks said it. Private Hicks said in Aliens. Kyle Reese in Terminator. I'm getting them screwed up. You can't reason with it. It's never gonna stop. That's how I feel about like the far left movement. There's no reasoning with it. There's a literal mental illness. I think in the DSM-7 someday way in the future, it's going to be a mental disorder there's not a really good name for it other than obviously narcissism and being just plain old effing retarded and stupid. But I think those three things that makes it different. There's a really great book called Bowling Alone, which talks about the disintegration of civic groups throughout the country. The Lions Club and the Rotary and all this stuff, and how nobody does that stuff anymore. And nobody joins bowling leagues anymore. This lack of wanting to belong to a group, but you want the attention focused on you. I think it shows. I think it shows in some of the young athletic sports that I'm seeing, and I think that's a lot to where we got at this point. I don't know. Your thoughts?
And Chris, real quick, you mentioned history repeats itself, but there's that saying goes a bit further. I don't remember exactly who said it, but I can see it playing out now. Is history repeats itself? The first time is tragedy. The second time is farce. And if we end up going to something new in terms of a national divorce, I can only imagine the farce that it's going to show up as.
Yeah, I feel like as historians, we understand human nature better than ever before. Maybe, I shouldn't even say that because, and we have access to the grift, to the corruption, instant access. So you're not reading about the corruption of like the last administration 8 years later. Mm-hmm. You're reading about it yesterday because that person just quit and then released a book, so you're like, it's like real time. Whereas it used to be at least a delay when you realize that, hey, the little guy's kind of getting effed over here.
Just imagine 24/7 coverage during the JFK administration when he's walking around banging Marilyn Monroe.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think
they may not have, well, I don't know. They might've been wall-to-wall coverage of pretending it didn't happen.
Yeah. But there are enough outlets now on the right that
there would have been a Fox News too. That would have, yeah.
Yeah, Fox.
There would have been a CNN ignoring it and a Fox News spending, wall-to-wall coverage on it.
I had a question for you guys, the bastards. Russ, right? You had mentioned that agriculture and food and water and whatnot. So this might be an interesting question for some people. It's more like a kind of like a what if. Are you guys prepared if something were to go down? If we, maybe it's my kind of fantastical like movies, or I've got like my little go bag at work, my little emergency stuff. Are you guys the type of people that have a bug out bag? Do you have a place? Do you have extra food? Do you have anything just in case? At least you have to kind of, hold on for like a couple of weeks at least.
I'll say this. I'm protected by several layers. First of all, during the pandemic, we did start to create some extra food stores. I also live in a more rural part. It's not quite as rural as Coop. But we've got some farmers around here. We got folks who raise cattle. I'm far enough away from the city where, I'm in a rural area. Plus, I am rather well armed. I mean, I don't have like an arsenal or anything, but I exercise my Second Amendment rights. I think I've got obviously is legal, but I've got enough if God forbid something happened to be able to protect myself and my family. I hope it never comes to that. But the whole point of the analogy I've made for years is this is back when Arnold Schwarzenegger was super buffed. A mugger is not going to mug Arnold Schwarzenegger because Arnold Schwarzenegger looks like he can kick his ass. He's going to go after the scrawny guy who can't do anything.
Sure.
The whole point of having that stuff is hopefully I never have to use it. But I've got that kind of stuff if I need to. It does would I like to be better prepared? Sure. But that would require a lot more money than I have.
Yeah. And I think Coop, I think you guys were talking about like community and groups and that sort of thing, right? My Marine buddy who's watching right now, I believe when kind of the whole pandemic started, he was friends with his neighbors. He lives in a kind of cul-de-sac area. So they kind of watched out for each other. Right. And it's one of the things that they kind of, as a community, right, they helped each other out. And I don't know. So that's kind of, I would say, because right now, I agree with you. Right now, it's like me. I'm gonna watch for myself. It's all about me. But thankfully, we do have some people that still think that way, community and groups and protecting yourselves and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I grew up really fortunate in some ways. I've talked about this a little bit with Chris, but I grew up on a small farm up in the Cascade Mountains, and we were poor, so it helped us subsist. And hunted elk, hunted deer, hunted a grouse, fish, salmon, whatever, all the time. I was the one out there, even though I was by far the youngest, to do the actual killing and the actual skinning and gutting and all that stuff. I did it to my first deer when I was 7, and my first elk not too long after that up in the woods. I grew up that way. Cut wood by hand because all we had was a wood stove. So, we're talking Michael Landon shit here.
I really wish, I would feel so much better if I knew how to do that, honestly. You know what I mean? As I get older, as I make kids, and I think about like, oh man, things are starting to get a little hairy.
Well, in my opinion, and not to kind of cut Coop off here, but I think that's an
advantage. Oh, really? That's kind of what you're doing.
I cut him off. I cut him off for you.
I think there's an advantage to community in that. You may not. One of the points of bringing a diverse group of people together is not so you can all do everything. It's so that, I may know how to, raise corn.
Sure.
Coop would know how to skin an elk, and, you're coming together to bring those together so your community can survive.
True.
That's a big part.
Yeah.
I was going to get to too was the way I grew up and the way it still is. I live on the other end of the county from where I grew up, but it's still, and there's a couple of big towns nearby, but it's still that way. You get an elk hunting, you're going to go over to your neighbors and drop them some backstrap, some steaks, because guarantee if they go fishing, they're going to bring by some salmon or whatever out of the garden. That's the way it still works around here.
Those communities are kind of just naturally prepared. Those communities are already prepared. Yeah.
Right. There would not be a lot of infighting.
In many ways.
Yeah.
In many ways, already prepared.
Trucks would win.
And if we're talking about survival, if you need someone to breed, just I can work in that area. So if we want more kids, just give me a call.
I'm getting kind of intersectionally uncomfortable with this conversation right now, based on the way
Going back to something Coop said, one of your first things was the education system. Yeah, our kids aren't being taught. Aren't really. It's the specialness. That's a nice word. Of the Declaration of Independence or our Constitution. They're not really being taught it, and the uniqueness of it, the power of the document itself, albeit written by imperfect men. All men are imperfect. All men and women, I should say. Wicksmen too, are imperfect, but so they can't even understand. Or even if they are learning and it's just like, here, check these few boxes, and they're not really understanding the political philosophy, the power of it, the founding fathers' understanding of human nature up to that point, and also like building on, constitutions that had been written in Europe. So it wasn't like, completely from scratch. But yeah, I mean, they can't understand the power of it. So therefore, when, the Democrats are like, we should just make the Supreme Court 12 justices, there's like half the country is just like, okay.
Yeah, well, I make sure my children go to a private Christian school. And, I retired from the Army. With that in my VA, I possibly could have survived, but, I took another job. And part of the reason for that, it's not the whole reason, but part of the reason is so that I can afford a private education for my kids, to make sure that they're getting stuff like that. Plus, it's got to be reinforced at home. And my oldest kind of rolls her eyes at me every once in a while when I bring up this stuff, and I would have done the same as a teenager. But I'm hoping that it will make an impact, and down the road, it's going to kind of sink in a little bit more where she'll appreciate it.
Yeah, I made my son write me a presentation. It wasn't beautiful. It's not going to win any awards, but of what the Declaration of Independence was before the July 4th weekend. Mm-hmm. If he wanted to partake in all the fun stuff we had planned, I made him do it. He had to spend a couple hours, probably just watching some YouTube videos and copying.
Did you grade it? Red pin it?
No, I just wanted to have the conversation, and I wanted to kind of keep the conversation going about why it was important, and not just kind of think, oh, it just happened. It's just part of history, but like, no. This is a really important part that a lot of these especially our Constitution, like a lot of these discussions, these arguments we're having, that are possibly going to tear us apart, are based on these things that happened a few hundred years ago.
Right. If you ever want to see arguments, wait until if they actually trigger an Article 5 convention, because there's several. They're getting close to the number of states that could actually trigger an Article 5 convention.
Okay, what's that?
For those who don't know, in Article 5 in the Constitution, Article 5 says that if I don't know if it's 2/3 or 3/4, I'm gonna have to go back and look, of the states, there are two ways to amend the Constitution: either through Congress, 2/3 of Congress, and then it goes to 3/4 of the states for ratification, or the states themselves can call a constitutional convention to propose amendments to the Constitution. It has never happened. We've never done that. Matter of fact, the last time that the states got together to amend a governing document, it was to amend the Articles of Confederation, and we ended up with an entirely new document. That is the fear with an Article 5 convention, is that it could become what's called a runaway convention and come up with something entirely new. I'm not sure that that'll happen. I do see value in the states coming together and saying, hey, things got so out of control that we need to propose some changes. However, I'm not sure that there is enough unanimity to actually pass the kinds of things that are on some people's wet dream lists. It sounds cool to have Go ahead.
I feel like that our saving grace might be the fact that there's two things. Like one is that, the people that are running the political parties, all, however corrupt and evil they are they got a good incompetent streak going through them too, so their inability to organize something like this without just, shooting themselves in the foot, or without, nominating somebody to run the, to be the spear of the project that turns out to be a disgrace, they can shoot themselves in the foot so easily. And the number two is like our attention span as Americans is so short that it's like, we'll find there'll be some other constitutional crisis that we'll come up with that, will take energy away from the original constitutional crisis that they were trying to organize something like that for. So,
well, you mentioned the incompetence. When I was a kid, back when I was a young boy, I used to think that the folks running the government were supposed to be these wise people, who knew what they were doing. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that these are the same people that were in school with me eating paste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of an Adam Carolla thing. I think one of these things that brought us all together, one of the reasons we're all talking today is that we were all fans of Adam Carolla at some point and got to know each other through that. But he always talks about how like he just never realized when he was a kid like how dumb adults would be. Like,
Yeah.
It's like I kind of am fast tracking my son, and I explained that to him. I mean, how can you not? I mean, I want to be honest with my kid. I don't want him to, I don't want him to disrespect his teacher. But during the pandemic and the mask wearing phase, however short it was in Texas, like I remind him every morning that the person that was going to be teaching you science today was also going to be making you wear a mask that didn't work.
Yep.
I just said, that doesn't mean you can disrespect her, but I just want you to keep that in mind.
You can disrespect when you become an adult.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite subjects to talk about because the huge delta between the Gen X and the Millennials and Gen Zs. I think so much of it comes out of education because I preached about it on the Two Grumpy Bastards podcast a bunch, but our generation, I did what I was told. I didn't interrupt adults when they were speaking. Teachers were like gods. You didn't mouth off. A football coach was the god of gods, and scary. I wouldn't even imagine mouthing off to my football coach. I was afraid of some of my teachers and good healthy fear, and I was just thinking too, on Flag Day we had to write an essay called "What the Flag Means to Me." We did that in grade school. It's so different. It is so different. That slippery slope that I saw coming to that slide that we went down, a loss of a fear of authority, the loss of an appreciation of a respect for experience. I mean, it's all there. It's all built in now. I remember when social media was first up and people would argue with me that we're in their teens and 20s, and I'm like, you know what? Come back in about 15 years when you're somewhat interesting. Now it's like, oh God, I can't even... I'm glad I'm not a parent, Chris. I respect what you're going through because I would have a tough time because I was brought up very, very old school, and I'm a little old school myself, and I would have a tough time not going into a classroom and choking a teacher out over stuff.
Maybe there's a third thing then I would add to my list of things that may save us is that there is a generation of people like myself that are raising young kids right now that are bitching about the government. That it's not, I'm not coming home. I think there's generations where parents come home and they're like, look at this new shiny VCR and look at this remote, like there's like a kind of a technology, like, no, I'm coming home and I'm talking to my kids, I'm not, this is not me marching in the door and screaming it, but our conversations are often about things like, these schools are trying to make kids wear masks in other cities, like in New York City, they still make kids wear masks to school. And like, what do you think about that, son? We're having conversations like that more, which I think to me is like when I was a kid, my dad made me listen, or didn't make me, but in the car as he listened to conservative talk radio. You know what I mean? So I was like hearing those themes were like getting beat into my head. So right or wrong, I'm saying there'll be a generation that's being raised right now that will not be pussies. I don't think.
Yeah, well,
I really don't think. I really don't think they will be.
Yeah,
I think
going
they'll
off
be
that,
rebellious.
I don't know if y'all have listened any to Tim Pool and the Timcast IRL, but he makes the exact same point because he talks about how the right is having children, the left is not. Now, obviously, some are, but I'm talking about the disparity. Is that basically, a lot of folks on the left have taken themselves out of the pool of propagation, and a lot of folks on the right are having more children, and that's eventually going to tell. Now, and that's one of the reasons why there's so much indoctrination in schools, is because there's no other way for the crazies to reproduce.
I think that it creates right now you have more parents, whether it's 5% more or 50% more, are talking to their young kids in elementary school saying, "What did your teacher say today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you say the Pledge of Allegiance? Do you know what that is? Is it every day? Is it only Fridays? When's the last time you did the Pledge of Allegiance?" And you got more parents kind of drilling their kids, even if it's out of a sense of just curiosity, like, hey, I better, like, there's something in my head saying I better start paying closer attention.
The pandemic opened a lot of that up with Zoom.
Yeah,
class.
for sure. Yeah.
I guess when things like this happen, you always hope that it's going to sharpen the edge that's been lying dormant and rusty for a while. I think that's been the biggest thing I've seen. Not since the contract with America have I seen so many people, the Newt Gingrich, Bill Clinton midterm election, but I've seen so many people on the right mobilizing to get people. It's pissed people off, and like I said, you hope that's the whetstone that hones that knife edge.
I think it's doing two things. It's like it is a whetstone honing, sharpening that blade. But at the same time, there's another side of like kind of blubber or whatever that's just like kind of built up a thick skin to that blade, and it's not like it's just like two sides are both building up and not compromising.
I will say this: Monkey's uncle on the chat says he said his opinion says until 2020 election, your big saying was "do as you're told." And then suddenly after COVID, any election, now you're questioning authority. Now, I feel like we should always question authority. And I like when you're explaining to the kids, this is the way we do it. We should explain to them why we're doing it this way, right? This is right. Not just because even with my parents growing up, I would always tell them, you just can't tell me do this. I'd like to know why I'm doing it. And then I want to decide on my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, two things on that real quick. First, I've always told my daughter, I don't care what you believe, but know why you believe it. Understand why you believe certain things. And I do try to ingrain certain, morals and ideals in her, but eventually they're going to have their own thoughts. I mean, they're almost like
back it up. You better back it up. That's all.
The second thing, and I was going to bring this up during our military movie and perception discussion, but I'll go ahead and talk about it now. Baron von Steuben, back in 1778, when he was training the American military at Valley Forge, he said he noted the difference between the American army and European armies when he trains them. He said, in Europe, it is enough for me to say for someone to do something and they do it. In America, I need to tell them why they are doing something and then they will do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder what that is. It's just if it's it could just be the nature of whether it's America or whether it's thousands of years ago, someone from West Africa migrating to East Africa. It's like, if you're a pioneer, you are going to naturally be more curious. So, that's the beauty of America. Yeah. It's like just kind of the perfect storm of all the human condition to explode into something just so innovative and creative and world changing, I think.
Look at the source material too. It's really important to get the reference of what the British Empire was like, what that culture and society was like for since 492, since Alfred the Great, all that kind of stuff. It evolved over time, but look at what they came from. The exact opposite, where everything is built in. You have a system that has survived hundreds and hundreds of years, and these pioneers and these folks go to this continent and have to carve out a completely different way of life, basically reinvent everything.
Yeah.
And they did reinvent everything with the help of some of the native tribes and all that, and there was a lot of influence from that, but they built something completely different than that culture and that society and that government that they fled from. Couldn't be more night and day. And I think that was kind of it was almost like not only did they walk out the door, but stepdad kicked him right in the ass over tea kettle when they left. And so that even created that more. I think we had, like, Corolla loves to talk about daddy issues. I think this country grew up on a big daddy issue. And you want to talk about an insurrection? That's where
those things work in the macro too. Sure, yeah. It's like it's just the human condition that you have it pretty good. Then you're just like, well, it could be better, and you break out. But so the thinking about like a pioneer and like what Baron von Steuben said about the American soldier. So Russell, you said, was it more of like a defiance thing, like, hey, why are you telling me what to do, or was it kind of because I was kind of saying it was like a curiosity thing, like I need you to tell me like why I should do this, because I really need to know, and because I need to learn, and
I think when something looks somewhat stupid, and let's be fair, marching in a straight line at a bunch of folks shooting guns at you, that kind of stuff looks stupid on the surface, but when you understand why you're doing certain things, like, for example, in the Revolutionary War, because you got to put out a high volume of fire, it's not as accurate, so on and so forth, then they're like, okay, now it makes sense. So I think what a lot of it is the curiosity and the wanting to make sense. I need to be able to make sense out of that as opposed to just accept it. And that is going back to what Koop said and what you said, the frontier mentality. It is the curiosity of, okay, I need to understand why this is like this, because otherwise I might not survive.
Anything I learn in that situation, anything you learn in that situation is of value, right?
Yes.
Like every little piece of knowledge you can get about like how to catch a beaver or what berry to eat, what is just like is invaluable. You couldn't put a price on that kind of knowledge.
You had to not only be precise in your actions to keep you and your family alive, you had to have this massive knowledge of a lot of different things all at once, unless you were part of the Boston aristocracy. And could have people do your shit for you, or a Tory, but you have this massive. They had to know how to fix a wagon wheel, how to shoot, how to gut. They had to know how to read their Bible. Sow crops. These were Renaissance beyond Renaissance people, with a high attitude of we took a lot of great things from the English culture, and one of them was that education and jurisprudence, Magna Carta attitude. But not only that, not only are they pragmatic in the moment, so the moment needs to make sense, but they have to plan for the future, because if your crops don't get in, your family dies, or you have to be a prognosticator on survival and on a lot of things. Very smart, strategic thinking too.
Yeah,
and that a lot of that came into the difference in why.
It's
ultimately we were successful.
Yeah, it's just like it's in a lot of ways it's like modern man or woman I should point out. It like putting an IT degree together, like they're just stacking knowledge on knowledge, and because it's incredibly valuable, it's valuable. You got to pay, usually have to pay for that kind of knowledge. So they're just stacking knowledge on knowledge, and just like today. But all right, well, do we have any closing thoughts on this topic before we get into some? Yeah, Robbie does. All right.
A couple of you guys mentioned German quotes. Can I like German guys? Can I quote one German guy? Uter Zerker from The Simpsons says, "Don't make me run. I'm full of chocolate." So I felt left out. So I needed to quote a German guy, because you guys,
thank you for that. My ancestors, thank you so much.
that does complete the conversation. I now feel fulfilled and warm inside.
Awesome. I'm glad. I felt left out, so I needed to. I
didn't see that coming, Robbie. I didn't see that coming.
Good. Coop mentioned one last thing before we close out. You mentioned different things, different jobs and tasks and everything, including you said you needed someone to even know how to read the Bible, which kind of goes back to military. Now, I don't know much about the military, but what I do know is there's usually a chaplain. Is that correct? Did you guys have one? And
at the battalion level, yeah. So just so you understand the real quick basic structure, there it goes: soldier to squad to platoon to company. At battalion level, you usually have a chaplain.
Got it. Okay. What was their purpose? To preach, for counsel? What do you
spiritual welfare of the soldiers? I mean, we live in a, whether some people like it or not, we live in a Judeo-Christian religious nation. Upwards of 80% of the country believes in some kind of supreme being, usually through Christianity in this country. And religion's very important. Military wants their soldiers to be able to, go through. Besides, there's that old saying of there are no atheists in foxholes. I think the most religious I ever got was at Ranger School, because you're coming together and whatnot. Chaplains are very important. They are big morale boosters.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Adam's quote when you're never, what is it? You're not depressed when it comes to depression. What's the quote when you're being chased by a bear?
You're never depressed when you're being chased by a bear.
You're never depressed when you're being chased by a bear, because you want to run away. You want to get out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and before Chris takes it to our next segment, okay, before we might have some viewers that might not know you guys too much. You guys, obviously, can you guys tell us just a tad bit what you guys did in the military, and did both of you guys also serve as professors, or did you guys teach as well? What did you guys do?
Why don't you go first, Coop?
Yeah, I was in the Army 23 years. I had a whole bunch of different roles. I won't bore you with my resume, but 23 years, that was a lot of different jobs. Some jobs lasted only a year. Some jobs lasted almost 3 years, but that's about the limit that you'll get in the Army. It's either move up or get out, at least in our generation. And Russ and I, we met teaching college. We were both ROTC instructors, and then also professors within the university system, teaching some civilian combined classes, that kind of thing. So I'm not sure. I did that for just a little over 2 years. I think, Russ, you did it. Did you do a 3-year tour on that?
3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know. It'd be boring to list my resume. I could send it to you. But
so you can't really be in the Army and do the same job for longer than 3 years.
Not unless you're a warrant officer. A technical expert, like a IT guy or a helicopter mechanic, pilot, that kind of thing.
Jack
Some
Reacher.
Of those warrant officers, they're technical. They get it's almost like going to a technical school and doing one thing, and they got a good life because they're not enlisted, and they're not a commission officer. They're commissioned, but they're not like us. So a lot of those guys never have to lead a damn thing in their entire life. They can just do their job. So, and a lot of them love it. One of my good friends was in charge of the boat unit. Actually, the Army has more seagoing vessels than any other organization in the world, believe it or not. That's true. You can look that up. LSVs, LCVs, tugboats, because Corps of Engineers, the waterways.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Supplies moving back and forth. And he was and they don't call them sailors, they call them mariners in the Army. But he was a CW4, and he ran our boats, and he was also a pilot. We also don't call them captains, we call them pilots. And his civilian job, he pilots the ferries here in Washington State. And so that's what he did most of his career. And he became Russ is kind of interesting. He became a Walk 5 at the end of his career,
wow,
which is basically the equivalent to a 3-star general within the Warrant Officer Corps. But he was a mariner his entire career. And, of course, he loved the shit out of that, being at sea most of the time and no politics.
Yeah, I'd got to guess that the supply boat to logistics boat to attack boat ratio is pretty high on the supply boat logistics boat side.
Sure is.
Yeah. All over the country. Sure. Yeah.
As for me, I spent 24 years in the Army as part of one of the cockiest, most arrogant branches that exist within the Army, and that's the infantry. I was in the infantry for 24 years. I led a rifle company in the invasion of Iraq. I left there and went to UC Davis to teach ROTC. As Coop says, we met almost a year into my first year there, I guess. So sorry, the printer started going, so hopefully that doesn't come in here too much.
We got facts coming in. You got hot facts coming in there.
No, I've got somebody in my family that's printing.
You're fired, McFly.
If y'all have ever read Colin Powell's autobiography, he's absolutely correct when he says, an airborne ranger infantryman, there is no cockier soldier in the entire world. And if y'all seen Dodgeball, there's a meme of Dwight of White Goodman or whatever his name is. Ben Stiller character saying, here it says, here at Global Gym, we're better than you and we know it. Well, we've modified that to say, here in the infantry, we're better than you and we know it.
Yeah.
And that's part tongue in cheek and part pure belief in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I've done all kinds of jobs in the military. After teaching ROTC, I went to be an executive officer. I worked in a division headquarters where, with the big screens everywhere where you see everything. I helped train the Saudi Arabian Army. I taught at the Command and General Staff College. I was a battalion commander helping train National Guard units. So I've done a fair bit of things, and now I'm out and glad that I'm not in anymore.
Cool.
Well, thanks to both of you for your service. I really appreciate it, and thanks to your service to our podcast.
Thanks for buying me this
information.
Thanks for buying me this cool muscle shirt that's Lycra on a 100-degree day. Thank you for that tax money.
You can always take the shirt off.
Yeah.
I would, but one of you would probably call Greenpeace and say he's beached.
I thought you were afraid of us fainting or something, from being swooned.
I got a topic. Okay, I got a topic that can help us swerve right into your favorite war movies. So, as you guys talked about on your most recent episode of the Two Grumpy Bastards, available everywhere. Recruitment numbers. The recruitment mission is way down. Is failed. I guess is failed. They'd say. What gives, and what is the best recruitment movie ever? Maybe Top Gun. This latest Top Gun. Will that help things? Maybe. I don't know.
I think that'll help.
What gives? Yeah, what gives?
The recruitment. First of all, the military is not setting itself up for its target demographic right now, which is usually, with some variants, rural to southern young men out of high school who love God and country and want to go off and do, that kind of cool stuff. The purple-haired activist that's marching with Antifa is not going to join the military anyway, but that's what a lot of it seems to be geared towards now with pronoun training in the Navy and a lot of the CRT that's coming into the service academies. People look at that and they're like, why am I joining now? I mean, it's no surprise that recruitment swelled when Donald Trump became president and the military was seen as in vogue again. And I'm not here to talk about, either the pros or cons of Donald Trump, but it became in vogue to be seen as patriotic again, and that helped swell military recruiting. As far as recruitment movies, Top Gun did wonders for the Air Force, although unless you go to the Air Force Academy, your chances of actually flying a jet are virtually zero.
Yeah. You're like, you show up at the recruiting office, you're like, so let me get this straight. I'm going to be a mechanic. Now, does a mechanic get to fly? Does the mechanic get to fly an F-16?
No.
Yeah.
Recruitment.
So after I fuel up the F-16, will I get to fly it?
Can I take it out for a spin?
You're telling me no. Okay. My car's running. I'm leaving. Yeah.
Any of the good patriotic. I mean, Top Gun. One of the good things about Top Gun Maverick is it's one of the few movies now that's portraying the warriors of the military as not bumbling fools full of PTSD and rage. It's actually portraying folks who are proud of being in service, folks who are good at their job, and folks who are proud of it.
Technically competent.
Yeah, very technically competent. That helps. I'm not sure what other so-called recruitment movies. Some of the best recruitment we had were the videos that came out of the invasion of Iraq, what we call OIF 1, because when they saw us thunder run through Baghdad, in what we call LISCO, large scale combat operations. It used to be high intensity combat, which is not to be confused with the counterinsurgency or the low intensity combat that followed. When it's high intensity mano a mano stuff, and we actually get to show off our ability to crush people beneath our heel, that does wonders for recruiting because people see that we're winning, and winning, just like in sports, winning cures all ails.
I'm not trying to make
if you imagine yourself like being scared shitless in an Iraqi village, like getting ready to go through a door and you don't know if this one's rigged or what, it's like that's not
Scared
I don't know. I don't know if that's something that's
scared is a little bit of a different term because it's,
or you know what I mean, like that.
Yeah.
It's not like that, like where like your enemy is
knowing
sneaky,
where to find the enemy.
you know, whatever.
That's a big one. Is knowing one of the biggest frustrations in a counterinsurgency is knowing who you're allowed to shoot at and who you want to be your friend.
Mm-hmm. Like I'm thinking, like you wouldn't want to sign up for something where like you don't know who the enemy is, or you're just signing up to go somewhere to get sniped at. You know,
even then, if you have the support, and they'll back you when you do make a play, that goes a long way. But if you get hung out to dry because you're reacting in a split second, and you may make a mistake, and it can be a deadly mistake because we're using live ammo here. But reacting, if you know that someone's got your back, it's a lot easier to do that recruitment vice. Hey, I'm just going to hang these guys out to dry because we got a bad piece on CNN.
So so it's kind of it can be as simple as who's the commander in chief, and do I trust that person? Or do I think that person's going to be commander in chief in 4 or 8 years, and do I trust that person with my life? Yeah, I guess is it. And if it's like, if there's someone in office that it's like, no, I sure don't,
pretty much.
Yeah, I don't know. You're not going to join up. So, all right. So maybe Top Gun will help, they fill the mechanics in the Air Force, but
was Jarhead a recruitment movie?
Is that the one with John Cena?
No, that was the one with Jake Gyllenhaal.
That was depressing. That was like
it was.
Yeah, that may show up. That movie, I only watched it once. That may show like maybe some realism there, but not like I really want to rush out and join so I can.
It's not a rah thing.
Leave my family and my young hot wife for a couple years.
Monkey's
while the neighbors go by.
Monkey's uncle had a question for the guys. He wanted to know if you guys knew any leaders in the Army like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, anyone like that, or were you like that?
Okay, well that's actually one of the things I was going to talk about when we talked about movies.
Sure. Okay, we'll get to that then. Okay.
All right. Well, look. Here's the duality of that role. Everything Jack Nicholson said in the movie was accurate. The problem was he didn't live by his beliefs. Because if he truly lived by his own principles that he stated, when things went south and the code red, he'd have stepped up and said, I made that call, and he'd have taken responsibility. Instead, he hung his Marines out to dry. Now, I've known a few folks that are that cocky. But I think that there's some exaggeration there. I am thinking of one commander in particular I had that was kind of like that. Where the problem was he was the smartest guy in the room, but he also knew he was the smartest guy in the room. So that brooked very little room for leeway. But there are some other issues with The Few Good Men that we could go into, but.
Yeah, as far as like military movies, I'd say that one is like in the throwaway category for me. Not just because it doesn't have warfare, because I think at some point in that movie, they were storyboarding it, and it became all about. This movie is all about a build up to that moment with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise, and you can't. That's
exactly right.
It's like
that was a storyboarded movie. The only thing that I would say is. That would recruit me if Demi Moore was going to be hanging out with me all day. That would have.
Yeah. If I do get in trouble, Demi Moore will be my advocate.
Bail me out. Demi Moore, the young Demi Moore, pre-Ashton Kutcher Demi Moore.
What was she in that? Was she was a JAG? Was she a?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I will tell you this just quickly, since Russ did. Right here, let me translate Russ for you. Okay, let me get to that later, but let me spend the next 10 minutes telling you what I was going to tell you later.
Yeah, go get bent.
If you need me to interpret for Russ at any time, we've been doing this.
What I love about your podcast is when you ask Russ, like, do you want to wrap it up, or would you like to talk about that thing that you really wanted to talk about for the last couple weeks? And Russ is just like, well, I guess we can. Yeah, we should. Yeah, we have a little time.
I got some gems I need to get out. People deserve to know what I have to say.
That's true. Yeah. It's an act
the
of.
only thing I was going to add to
you're a
the
humanitarian. Yeah.
Sorry about that. The only thing I was going to add to the Jack Nicholson thing is that I think any successful, at least an Army officer, I shouldn't say any, but most, it's kind of like being a football coach. You should be carrying that prick size of number 8 somewhere in your pocket in case you need to use it. But it's really important to know when you use it, and you use it as a process and a method, not as a an emotional IED. That's important. I lost my shit a couple times with people, but I also was that guy that a couple of the bosses I worked for would roll me into the room. He'd call it Coop Frag Grenade, and I'd just go the fuck off. And that way, when Boss came in, Boss was the good guy, and I was the intimidating guy that told everybody they were milk cows.
You're the bad lieutenant.
If I had a
Harvey
time machine, I go back in time with $300 in my pocket and take your mom to the clinic. When I'd say things like that to people.
That's comedy gold, though. Like you should, like I like that era where there were a bunch of military movies and they would hire real drill sergeants, like retired drill sergeants.
Yeah. Right.
That was like that skill they had.
To have that skill is important, but if you use it all the time, you're a buffoon.
Yeah, because I think we both worked for folks who that was their default at times, and they just it ends up becoming noise. They're some of the worst leaders out there.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Like blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's exactly what you hear.
Like what else you got? Okay, what else you got?
So you're seeing Arlie Ermey's character in Full Metal Jacket use that reach around. Like every year, every crew, every new platoon of recruits, there was a Gomer. And he used the reach around. Like he just used that. That was like he used those same bits every crew that came through.
There was a bit in An Officer and a Gentleman where after Richard Gere's character graduated, he's riding his little moped by the new group of recruits, and Lou Gossett Jr. is out there using the exact same speech he used on them.
Oh, is that? I remember. Okay, when I was growing up, that movie was I was not allowed to watch that movie. So there must have been some nudity in it, some sex
boobies.
Or something. Yeah,
boobies.
Yeah.
Yep.
But again, like that's to get back to that the Few Good Men thing. That's right. We were talking about that not that long ago about how like Tom Cruise in those movies where that was another one of those formula movies for Tom Cruise where he was a young, very talented but young Jag. Right. And his dad was the best Jag in the world.
Right.
I'm kidding because that was Top Gun story, but his dad was the best Jag and he had big shoes to fill and there was an older Jag to mentor him and teach him a valuable lesson. And
I believe the word is legendary.
Yeah. And now he's now at the end of the movie, he's an experienced Jag. Like he's much more mature.
Moore told him because Demi Moore showed him the ropes.
And her boobs. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe that would be good for recruitment.
Striptease. If striptease because of Demi Moore's boobs.
That'd be good for recruitment if they could guarantee every Jag looked like Demi Moore.
Yeah,
and also every nurse looked like Jennifer Gardner from that movie Pearl Harbor. Which that's a fun movie to watch, but like kind of a throwaway movie too.
I was more of a Kate Beckinsale fan.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. They're both in that, right? Or am I getting those two confused?
Oh, what? Is Jennifer Garner? Is she in that? I can't remember.
She is.
Is she?
Yeah, they should have
mixed up the two white girls.
They should have renamed that movie Two Guys, a Girl, and a Japanese Attack.
Yeah, that was a movie I kind of had to watch, and I was like, "Oh, this is entertaining, like fun to look at." But yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Michael Bay really focuses on character development in his movies, as we all know.
But maybe it's true. Maybe the same guy that was putting out fires and jumping on ships at Pearl Harbor was also the same guy that piloted what was it? I'm not sure what the mission was called.
The Doolittle Raid.
Yeah. What are the odds? Same guy that was in Hawaii and was in the perfect position to, bail out ships and put out fires and shoot at Japanese planes. Was also on that mission.
Speaking of ships, and I think I don't know if we officially got into the movies, but what about that horrible battleship based on the Hasbro?
Oh hell yeah! That's one of my guilty pleasures.
I was thinking about that when I thought about recruitment.
Yes.
I was thinking about that.
I think Coop likes Rihanna. I think I heard you on a. Do you like her, Rihanna?
Oh, yeah, she's stunning.
I think I heard you one time say that. Yeah.
Well,
like her
that
movies.
movie, you can never go wrong with some kick-ass winning, which is what we did in that movie. And then they
Mm-hmm.
also had those old sailors, like the Navy vets,
That was
that
badass.
came in at the end and showed them how to use the old destroyers they put into play. Yeah, that was awesome.
And actually,
badass, yeah.
going back to something we were talking about last week, Taylor Kitsch from the Terminal List was the star of the movie.
Yeah.
Which we liked him in that series.
He was in that unfortunate abortion that I was looking forward to years. John Carter on Mars.
That's yeah.
I like that. I like that movie. I don't know. I like that movie. I think I like that movie because by the time I watched it, I had heard so many things that were saying it was terrible that it was like, it's not that bad. So maybe it wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as everybody said.
I would agree with that. I read the books as a kid, the Edgar Rice Burroughs books, and so I was such a fan. And I'm like, damn it!
See, that's what you get for reading, man. That's what you get for reading.
You know, nowadays they would
bite you in the ass every time. Bite you in the ass every time.
If they made a big series like they do nowadays on streaming, it would have been done really well. It would have to expand that universe out and
dude, give them time.
Yeah,
I mean, you can just go to Vegas right now and put money. Will Disney Plus do a John Carter remake? Yes, they will.
Yes,
they will.
John Carter will be.
They will run out of other stuff to do.
Female or something.
Yeah, that's true.
What, Russ?
If you've heard, they're now claiming that Obi-Wan swings both ways.
Yeah.
Lightsaber, yeah.
I thought they're not allowed. Jedis aren't allowed to bang. No.
That doesn't mean that they can't.
He just thinks about it, but he doesn't act on it.
Go away, everybody.
It's just
fucking go away.
They got to change everything about all the old stuff. So, yeah, that's.
You know who does go both ways is Darth Maul. His lightsaber had two, right?
Yeah, well, end it saber. I got you.
Somewhere it's gonna burn up.
Yeah, maybe he was. That's why he was so angry because he wasn't. The galaxy didn't give him equal rights. He couldn't marry Garth Maul. Anyway, let's get into some movies. Let's get into some movies. Yeah.
That was outstanding, though. Well done, Chris.
Let's get into these movies. I'm not even sure how we want to start this. We've already touched on a few, but Russ and Coop. Which one of you wants to start to tell us like your top three? Because I bet if Russ starts, he's got it broken down into like categories.
Scene 1, Act 4, when he actually looks at the camera sideways and he goes, yeah.
All right, so I'll leave it to you. Why don't you guys fight it out and see who starts?
Well, I could bring up at least one that's not a movie but a series that is undoubtedly at the top of the list is Band of Brothers.
Oh my God, yeah.
Absolutely.
I was about to guess it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Russ. I can't hear you for some reason. Which one was that?
Band of Brothers.
Oh yeah.
That captured not just the combat aspect, but the camaraderie, how soldiers really act, what happens in combat. That just encapsulates everything that if you've been in a deployed unit, you understand.
Yeah. So Saving Private Ryan came out first and Band of Brothers was kind of like similar style, Spielberg, Tom Hanks. Later, I think the timing of Band of Brothers was also right around 9/11. Like maybe it released before that, so a lot of people probably watched it, afterwards or something. But yeah, I got to say those two productions, like Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers, were like life changing. Yeah, like really, really impactful.
Those two are on top of my list.
Yeah, Band of Brothers. I can't even say enough about Band of Brothers. Like, I think I watched it.
I think.
Well, I think that the best part about both Band of Brothers, at least when you look at the behind the scenes stuff, Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan, they made the actors actually go through a mini boot camp in both of them. If you ever heard the story about Saving Private Ryan, all of the actors were about in revolt by day 3, and then Tom Hanks looked at all of them and said, well, if you think you got enough to climb those cliffs, then I guess we can go home. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll keep doing this.
Oh, good.
Yeah, great. It was a great cast.
Awesome cast.
Just incredible cast. I'm talking about Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers too. A lot of Band of Brothers was a lot more unknowns, I believe.
But looking back at it, it's funny. It's fun to watch how some of them. I mean, from later movie, the guy who plays Magneto is in there. The guy who plays
Michael
Professor X
Fassbender
is in there. Tom Hardy is in there.
Yeah.
A lot of actors that have had, good careers afterwards. I do always like seeing those guys pop up. Like, yeah, that guy was in Band of Brothers.
It rehabilitated Donnie Wahlberg for me because, it's hard to see the guy from New Kids on the Block playing a grizzled old veteran, but he did a really good job.
Gonorrhea, I'm talking about Gonorrhea from Band of Brothers. Like he's been in a few movies. He's kind of a cheesy actor, plays some cheesy like detective characters in shows, but I'll watch shows because I'll give a show a chance because the actor was in Band of Brothers, like that kind of thing.
Right.
So I love that show. How about you, Coop?
I got some ones that probably may be a little bit more off the beaten path. One of the best movies I've seen in years and years and years, and I've watched it 3 times, and I read the book by Jake Tapper, of all people, who writes pretty good embedded reporter books about the experience over there. The Outpost with Kyle Eastwood. It's,
okay.
Yeah, it's almost a quasi documentary, and it's about the battle of combat post Keating in Afghanistan. How at the beginning of Afghanistan, the strategic planning was bullshit. They basically were in a hole surrounded by the Taliban. And the story basically is, I believe, 53, mostly 10th Mountain Army soldiers almost lost the outpost to a coordinated 3-battalion attack by the Taliban. And they retook it. They managed to retake it during the movie. Kyle Eastwood, it was the first time that I actually took him serious as an actor, and he's channeling his old man in the movie. It's actually spectacular. And,
Orlando Bloom is in that too?
Orlando, yes, he is. Milo Gibson, that weird little Muppet-looking mini-me of Mel Gibson. And then that's the only fight in the entire history of the American military where there was 2 Medal of Honor winners in the same battle. And Kyle Eastwood plays. Yeah, I highly recommend that one.
That's on my watch list. That's definitely my watch list. I've seen that come up. I've added it. Looks really good. So that's really recent. And
they get the history right. It's within the last 2 years, 3 years. They get the history right, and
no, but even the event itself. We're not talking about this. Vietnam in the '60s or something. We're talking about something that happened in
these guys,
modern era.
Still fairly young dudes, and the director, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Kind of interesting story. He's a West Point grad. And then got into the film industry and started at the very bottom, and then kind of worked his way up through the camera people and all that. And now he's a director.
Hey, and, Coop, you have so I saw the movie The Outpost. I know Clint Eastwood has, I think, 2 sons, Scott and Kyle. Is it so? Scott was in the dramatic movie. There's a documentary. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. It's Scott Eastwood. Kyle is the musician.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, Kyle does all of his score. I'm so sorry about that. I listened to Kyle Eastwood.
I kept hearing. I filled in I kept filling in Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you
for sure.
correcting that. Yeah.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, they're both pretty talented dudes, and Scott's kind of had a nice little career lately.
He has. Yeah.
That Jason. What the hell? That. Oh God. Sorry, I can't think of it at the top of my head. It was a movie that came out recently, where he plays the bad guy, and he's very, very believable. Jason Statham movie. It's like Wrath of Man. Sorry, there we go.
Gotcha.
I haven't seen that one.
Who was in that?
Scott Eastwood, Jason Statham, a few other guys you recognize.
I watched that movie. I didn't know that was a little Eastwood there.
Yeah, the bad guy, the guy with the scarred eye. Yep, that's Scott Eastwood.
Okay.
Here's a tangent. Here's a tangent before we get into more movies and more in depth into some of the we've already named. Do you think there's an element to those things that happened just recently? Like maybe that folks are more likely to watch Band of Brothers and watch an interview with a 92-year-old vet talking about D-Day. And maybe there's something in us as humans that the stuff that is just like that, right? Just as intense that happened 7 years ago. We don't really, by guys that are only 35 now, there's something that that's a little bit too recent. So it's I almost don't want to, it doesn't get as much attention because it's just too recent. It's too fresh. I don't know. Is there something to that or?
I think the World War II throwback ones like Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers are because it was one of the, America was the unabashed good guy, in those movies. We were taking on literal Nazis, and it's so much more divided now.
Yeah.
I do think that's a big part of it is the way it's portrayed and the almost wistfulness for World War II.
How about look at it this way? The guys that came back from World War II and were in their 20, like late 20s, maybe early 30s, right? If they were older, no one really, like I'm sure there's some interviews, but for the most part, it was like, we're not really interested in hearing from you.
Back to life. Yeah.
But at the same time, like they would be more apt to listen to like that old timer from World War I tell his stories, because it's just like, I don't know. It's like we'll listen more to old people about that. But this 30-year-old that just went through, like lived the outpost, right? 7 years ago when he was 23, like something in us that's like, that's too fresh. Like, damn, like I can kind of swallow listening to the old guy talk about war, but something about the young guy talking about war is a little bit too close, like too, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there is something to that. I find that I am biased. Like I active in the vet community, like support groups, some other activities and things like that. And it's kind of funny my generation that went over and served, and the younger one, that right behind Russ and I, they definitely have a different way of looking at things, and much more. And there's nothing wrong with this. Much more abrasive and bombastic, and I think that stuff is more recent. The energy, the stuff needs to come out a little bit more. I think with the older vets, you see more of a sense of grace and experience on these things. And of course, they didn't have the extensive mental health outlets that the VA has now. They didn't have the in-service type stuff. So that was a hard-ass generation. It was a hard-ass generation of men who kind of kept their thoughts and their feelings to themselves about stuff like that, because that was what you were taught to do. So I think there's that's kind of, I'm always there's always focused on the older guys in my groups, and I mean, believe me, Russ can attest to this. I know I'm more active in the VA vet community with support groups and that kind of thing. But my God, vets can be some of the most prima donna pontificating fuckers on planet Earth. Trust me. I mean, it's not like we're all awesome people. And, some people, when you say thank you for your service, they spent 6 months in the mailroom and they got kicked out or chaptered, out of the Army or something like that. There is that extreme, too. So there are a lot of blowhards. And there are a lot of vets who, I will be honest with you, I think there's a lot of vets who, in the last Vietnam forward, who are like, what can I get? What can I get out of this? What kind of claim can I file, that kind of thing. There's a lot of that going on. There's an asshole on YouTube named Combat Craig, and I've already taken him on publicly a couple times, who literally puts up videos up there about how to cheat the system and how to get 100% disability. He'll actually tell vets how, stuff like that. And so, I just see that with those older gentlemen. I was in an American Legion hall in my hometown. We had 144 people. They didn't come to all the meetings. We had 144 for a town of 300. That's pretty extraordinary. And when I first got in the Army, a lot of World War II vets were still there. And there was a guy who won the Medal of Honor and a guy who won the Navy Cross in my American Legion hall. And that was extraordinary to be around men like that. And never a brag, never, that look at me kind of attitude. And please, I don't want you to think that all the vets and the Gen X and millennials are a bunch of dicks. Not at all. Quite the opposite. Wonderful guys for the most part, and gals. But I think that might be kind of what you're feeling, Chris. I don't know. That's just my food for thought.
Yeah, I think it's more like a human thing where, like, I will listen to the man, with that old, that old hat on, like, the scene, like he's 93 years old. He's like, and he's got a hat on that's, looks twice as big as his head because he's shrunken and shriveled. And we will listen to his story about D-Day, and it'll be really impactful. I think it's just because, like, it's an old person, it's wisdom. It's like, maybe it's a human thing, but like the 28-year-old that just got back from Iraq that actually went through something very similar, like last year, where, where his outpost was under siege for days, and they thought they were going to die, just like, what some of the soldiers went through World War II. It's like, we're just like, I don't got a lot of time for you.
Yeah, maybe
your movie is on my, maybe I'm admitting myself, like Band of Brothers watched it 3 times. Outpost on my watch list, haven't watched it yet. And I guess I'm asking myself kind of like, why, I wonder why that is, you know.
Maybe it's a matter of,
too.
You know, I've discovered you'll listen to stories from older folks or from your peers.
Yeah.
But if they're like younger than you, it's difficult to do.
Yeah. And then there's also like you're jaded by media because you got Rob O'Neill, right? I don't know. Is it kind of accepted that he's the one that killed Bin Laden or whatever? Okay, so like he's like a relatively young dude, right? You know, famous. And then you're just like, wow, what an incredible man. He's a hero. And then next thing you know, he's like getting kicked off a Southwest flight for getting hammered on a plane and getting belligerent with a stewardess or whatever.
Yeah, that's just soldier.
It's like
I think he's allowed.
I think so too, but it's kind of like maybe it's like a human thing where it's like this person's 30, they have been through something, but they also have a lot of time, like they have a lot of life left to kind of learn and grow, and they're not ready. Yeah, they're not. Maybe it's like we don't take what they say is seriously because we know they're not done yet. Whereas the old guy in the hat, you know, that's like the last, you know, oldest surviving D-Day, you know, veteran is like, this guy's lived his life. It's complete. He's gonna know more. He's gonna have it settled. I don't know.
Yep.
Sorry about that. All right. So I'll throw out one. We Were Soldiers.
I love that movie.
We Were Soldiers. Another one that was a Vietnam era movie that was like really impactful to me that I've watched many times that may take some liberties. I don't really know. It's a Mel Gibson movie. So, I mean, it's like famous actors, Sam Neill, right? But
Neil.
really impactful from like I think for me, the wartime movies are like, there's a mix of like realism. Do I learn something from it? Because I think in the beginning of We Were Soldiers, that was the cavalry, but that became the like kind of considered the air cavalry because instead of horses, it was, we're going to use helicopters now. And this is something new. So the movie was basically that this mission was like the first time that air cavalry, or, you know, it wasn't the first time, but like a first major offensive or something. So I learned something about that. I was like, okay, that's interesting because at some point, like someone had to decide, like, we're not going to ride horses anymore. We need something else, you know, or it's not gonna be a tank, you know, in the jungle. We need something else to kind of be that fast transport, you know? So anyway, that's my,
I enjoyed We Were Soldiers. I mean, a couple of things. I think Coop and I have both known NCOs like Sergeant Major Plumley, the character played by Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott. I said Sam Neill. Sam Elliott. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we've known the grizzled old sergeants major that are like that. Second thing was Joe Galloway, the guy played by Barry Pepper in that movie,
the journalist, photojournalist or something. Yeah.
Yeah, he came to give a talk when I was at the Command General Staff College, and maybe I'm wrong, but he seemed like he had a little bit of wild turkey before that talk.
Was he giving you all the bird?
He came across as slightly inebriated. Maybe he wasn't, but it sure seemed that way. And he was saying some things in there that talking about how people were turning around and spitting on the Pentagon. That kind of, I'm not sure he was the best representative they wanted to have, you know, talk about that stuff.
For the record, I have gotten drunk with the real Joey Galloway on more than one occasion.
Oh wow, that's cool.
I've also had scotch with Hal Moore that Mel Gibson plays in the movie. God rest his soul, great man. I was in that unit a couple of decades later. I was
in Vietnam,
yeah. I was in that unit in the '90s in Fort Hood, Texas. Same regiment, 2717 Cav, Custer's Own, Gary Owen, the whole 9 yards. It's in my soul. But I had the pleasure when we would have stable calls or we would have those. What they call them, Russ. Every Friday, we'd have the battalion run, and then you'd sit in auditoriums and they'd play the bagpipes.
Heyday activities, yeah.
Heyday activities. Thank you. Yeah. So a lot of these guys would come to our stable calls where the officers would have to drink the grog to earn their Stetson and do a bunch of stuff, and then sit around and just get hammered and smoke cigars. So I met a lot of those people. Pop Jekyll, Snake Shit 6, the one Greg Kinnear plays. He lives Or, I don't know
Oh
if he's
yeah,
still
yeah,
alive.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
lives just about 10 minutes from where I'm at right now. He did. I got him to come to a talk at one of the schools that I was guest instructing in. You're around people like that, and the movie hadn't come out for many years, but we had to know every word of the book, every syllable of the action that happened. And you're right, it was a battalion that basically faced about 3 divisions worth of NVA and held out. Thanks a lot to be quite honest with you, the field artillery and the Air Force and the Navy, but they did, and it's actually pretty accurate. The Lost Platoon, that was a big deal that happened.
Yep.
It was amazing meeting a lot of these people. Joe Galloway was a hoot, Russ, but he's a liberal.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
Then, when they filmed the movie, which was really cool, I'm sorry to bore you with stories, but when they filmed the movie, I was actually a head honcho at Fort Hunter Liggett, California, where they filmed it. And so I managed to have a beer with Sam Elliott and Barry Pepper one night, so that was kind of cool, too.
Oh, man, that sounds like you've told me that before. That's an amazing story.
I coined them, and I threw down my 7th Cavalry Gary Owen coin that I earned as a lieutenant, and they were like, holy shit, Major. It was kind of cool.
You never know. You never really know from the movie because they just cast who they cast. But and I'm guessing the character Galloway was a little bit older than the average soldier there, but they cast him as a kind of a young man in that movie. Was he? Because I think that kind of
about the same age. Knowing him and then knowing some of his contemporaries,
the soldiers,
I think they were about because Hal Moore was significantly older. General Moore was significantly older than him when we met. General Moore was in his Silver Fox years and all that kind of thing.
I would guess this again, just a guess. Like when you experience something that traumatic at a young age, your life can go a lot of different ways.
Sure, yeah,
a lot of different ways. Because you're really in your formative years. There's no really telling how that's going to form you. You could be like a military forever guy, or you could become like an anti-war guy. I mean, it
happened both ways.
Like who?
So the anti-war guy, like, oops, sorry, it's like this guy over here, Russ.
Oh, I thought you were pointing all your friends behind you.
That's me. I'm known as the anti-war type. That's peace, love, unicorns and lollipops.
I got to get an ice pack. I'll be right back.
Okay. So we were that movie was man, that was really because I think that movie also split time fairly evenly between the battle and then the training, the battle, and then also the family.
Yep.
How it impacted the family life. So that was kind of what I was going to get into. Like, so you've got movies that maybe are very more realistic on the warfare front, like technically, like the weaponry or whatever, the scenes, the cinematography. But what about are there any movies that really do the best job of portraying the impact on families and the psychological impact, whether it's on the individual or families? Like what movies would you? Yeah.
There is one. I was actually going to bring it up. It's one of my top movies, but it's an emotionally impactful movie. And it's called Taking Chance. It's got Kevin Bacon. Okay. And it's the story. Kevin Bacon is a Marine lieutenant colonel assigned to what's called escort duty, where he is the guy escorting the body of a soldier named Chance. I think it's Chance Phillips, I think is the name, back to his family for the funeral and everything. He's got to present the flag at the graveside service. And that one, you get to see how, the death affects the community, affects the parents. Because that's always what gets me. The soldier's death itself is tragic, but it's always to me how it affects others. Because, I mean, Coop and I have both lost friends, people we know. And I will say Taking Chance kind of reminded me of the community of one of the soldiers that I lost at Hilla, a great young man named Brandon Rowe. Well loved throughout his community, very patriotic community. And it hits you when you've been through it. You've had to do that kind of stuff. I had to be, a funeral officer, not for an active duty soldier, but for one who passed before. So, I've done the passing the flag thing. It makes an impact when you see that. And Taking Chance, that really did a very good job of showing both the solemn duty of escorting the body back, and then what the community is like and what the family goes through and what you go through when you're taking a body, because he has to go through all his possessions. They have to do an inventory of everything. You have to make sure that the uniform is on right. You stand guard over the casket, overnight. That kind of stuff. And I said I've lost every Memorial Day. Anyone who knows me knows that every Memorial Day I always post the names of the folks that I personally knew that we lost either in Iraq or Afghanistan. And it makes an impact. It's not something that goes away.
Sure. Okay, so Taking Chance. Thanks for that, man. I feel like I've seen the trailer for that, but those are the kind of movies like, all right, so I'm not going to watch that tonight, but I'm going to add it to the list because there's times where I'm in a mood where it's like, yeah, I'm ready for something like this. Like, I'm not sure why. Like,
oh wow,
I'm
okay,
not,
so 2009, Taking Chance. So it's not too old. So yeah,
there's been a few movies like that with some big actors where it was kind of about that character, that soldier, that officer that has to go and knock on the door and write the letter, whatever it might be.
I've never had to knock on the door, but my mentor from college, he was 2 years ahead of me in the ROTC Corps of Cadets. A great man named Larry Bogus got killed just inside Pakistan by the Pakistani frontier guards trying to mediate a meeting between the Afghans and the Pakistanis over a border dispute. And I remember seeing the pictures of his widow, Wesley, at the graveside. I couldn't make the funeral. I really wish I'd done more to get there, but I was assigned somewhere else. And just seeing the pictures of her at the graveside, she wrote a book called God, Golf, and Country, I believe. And that makes an impact. And, Larry Bogus was the greatest soldier that I knew, and he was the guy I always wanted to be. So, that kind of stuff it'll stick with you.
Yeah. Well, man, that's
it's gonna pick me up after that.
Well, I got one for you, Russ. I was gonna say that the film that I most think really, really shows the impact of war on the family is Future War with Chris Pratt, where he has to go in the future and fight with his daughter, who's now an adult, and she's hot. So that kind of shows you.
Yeah, he's like trying to fight the enemy, but he's also telling his daughter to cover up, to wear something less revealing.
My God, it's like he's like, God damn it! This is how my daughter turned out to look. This sucks.
I watched that movie. We talked about this a few weeks ago, where I had a conversation. It came up with my son, and I was like, "What'd you think of the movie?" He was like, "I really liked that movie," and I was like, "Have you ever wanted to watch it again?" He's like, "Nope." And I was like, "There you go." Like, we watched it once, and it was like, "Oh, that's it. That's thanks for that 2 hours, but I'm done."
One and done.
I liked it, but it was one and done. You're right, Manny.
What about what was there? You mentioned earlier you had a guilty pleasure movie.
Oh, it was
Behind Enemy Lines.
Battleship. Okay.
Battleship.
So let's switch. If we kind of go back from serious to fun, like what are some other guilty pleasures? Like
Starship Troopers.
I was hoping. Yeah, I was hoping.
Yeah.
I was hoping that when Russ was like, "There's one that above all beyond," he was going to be like Starship Troopers.
Oh,
well, let me touch on Starship Troopers for a second.
I love that
do.
movie.
For a second.
One thing I was going to bring up was,
let's see how this second goes. This
on the bad movies list. Almost any science fiction military movie, and I include Starship Troopers in that, is absolutely atrocious. I think while sometimes I'll find myself, flipping through channels and I'll stop on Starship Troopers just to see the shower scene.
Yeah, the best one.
Aren't they together in real life?
Yeah.
Casper Van Dien and that, or they were in a show together.
Dina Meyer.
Dina Meyer, yeah.
Yeah, they're in a TV show together or something.
They played a married couple on All American, that woke football show about the kid. Yeah, he's like Crenshaw High.
Okay.
Yeah.
Denise Richards, man. How about that one? Yeah.
Back when she was decent looking and her body was a lot tighter than it is now.
Yeah, go on a Starship Troopers jag here. Go for it.
Oh, no, look, I do not care for Starship Troopers first of all, it strays so far from the novel in terms of how the NCO is, how the battles are.
Again with the reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris read a book once.
I did.
Yeah.
Just lighten up and enjoy your fucking self,
I
Russ.
told you. I read that book twice, though.
Yeah. But look, most of the science fiction movies that I've watched that have some kind of military theme, it's very obvious, in my opinion, that the people writing that have no military experience whatsoever. They've got a lot of tropes and cliches. I mean, I'm probably one of the worst people to watch military movies with. Anything that's got a military theme of any kind. I tore apart Game of Thrones. I tore apart Walking Dead because, I'm like, put me in those worlds. I will rule it with an iron fist.
Did the novel, I know the movie seemed to give some sort of a message on like recruitment, the commercials and, join now, I don't know the word. I forget the word to use, but kind of to bring, recruits.
Fascism?
I guess, I don't know. But that was kind of funny, right?
A lot of it poked fun at some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But the book was a moderately conservative take on things, and I think the movie decided to skewer that.
Yeah.
Plus, just from a military standpoint, there was almost no what we call combined arms action. There were the planes, the fighters that would fly overhead, and there was the infantry. There was no real artillery. There were no tanks. There was no logistical trail. There were no engineers.
Yeah.
That NCO that was like, who here thinks they can break my arm? I mean, no, that was garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Live fire exercises on the base, the chasing each other around, hitting them with sticks so they continue running. I cringe when I think of that movie. And there are other science fiction movies like that, like Wing Commander, for example. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
Yeah, with Freddie Prinze Jr., I think.
No one saw that.
Where he's banging his superior.
I watched it twice.
Those are Starship Troopers. Y'all may like it. Maybe it's a guilty pleasure of yours. I think it is outside of the shower scene, it is a horrible movie.
Well, because you see it in a different light, right? We see it as a like popcorn, summer flick or whatever, right? You see it as
I can enjoy the popcorn summer flicks. If I go into a movie expecting it to be stupid, I'll have a lot of fun. Like, for example, Deadpool 2. It's not a serious movie. Turn your brain off, go in, and you'll have a blast.
Yeah.
But
why Deadpool 2?
What's that?
Why not Deadpool 1?
I like Deadpool 1 okay, but Deadpool 2 is better.
Okay. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll say that for a later date. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that later.
Hey, speaking of Starship Troopers, can you imagine? I thought about this one time. Can you imagine if they had cast Mark Wahlberg instead of Casper Van Dien in that role? Yeah. Hey, you apes? You want to live forever, bro?
Well, we're gonna kill those bugs, guys. Come on, let's go, guys.
Hey,
that is something.
Let's go, apes.
SNL should bring that skit back and highlight it a lot more, like the casting auditions. Like, what if Christopher Walken was going for the role of Han Solo back in the 70s? Like, that's a brilliant bit that they could do forever. They could do a lot more of that. Yeah, like Mark Wahlberg,
the role of Han Solo.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
God.
You can go nuts on that premise there. But Starship Troop. I remember enjoying Starship Troopers when it came out and enjoying it for years after, but now it's like, nah, like that's like too. There's been other cheesy movies to replace it, I guess.
Well, it's like going back and watching the A-Team, which I loved as a kid. But try to watch it now.
It's awful.
It's bad now. Yeah.
I watch it in my memories where it is great. It is great.
Me both.
I watch it in my memories, and the worst one there was I was more of a Fall Guy fan myself, Colt Seavers, baby. But but the fucking Mr. T, B.A. Baracus, actually made a contraption on a farm. I don't know if they were channeling the old movie by what's his name? Anyway, I can't think of it right now. But he made a contraption out of a hay baler and some hose that shot watermelons at the bad guys when they're trying to shoot them with their AK-47s. That's
yeah, man. Non-lethal. They never killed me.
It might have been muskmelons. Maybe that's my race.
I was gonna say it was a cabbage shooter. but I think there may have been a cabbage shooter.
God, that was unintentionally racist of me there, wasn't it? I apologize.
Guys, Monkey's uncle gave me the word that I was thinking of, propaganda. So Starship Troopers had those commercials. I was very propaganda. Yeah.
It was very propagandistic, but it was just the book was great, but the movie sucked.
Yeah.
You reminded me of one. You reminded me of one thing. The one thing that I really remember from Starship Troopers now that I think is, if I think about Starship Troopers in 2022, I think about that element of it in the beginning where for him to become a citizen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For him to become a citizen and earn the right to vote, he had to join the military.
Yeah. And that's another thing that's from the book. And this is where maybe I'll stray from our audience. I actually have a philosophical issue with that premise. I get it, but to me, the state exists to serve the citizens. That turned it on its head and made the citizens exist to serve the state.
I remember it's just a weird thing where, it was like, oh, no, you're here. You're kind of a citizen, but you're not a voting citizen.
Well, not to get too political or too SJW or anything like that. You guys might know more about this, but haven't there been cases of Hispanics and Latino people joining, enlisting, serving, and still being deported, maybe not being legal? There are cases where if you are a legal immigrant to the United States, regardless of where you're from, you join the military and it shaves time off of it and you can become an American citizen automatically. But you cannot join if you are in the country illegally. Gotcha. Okay.
You becoming a citizen automatically?
Well, it's like you
got to like at least make it through basic.
Right. Basic.
Once you make it through basic and you get through your term of service, it severely curtails the amount of time that's required to become a citizen. I mean, I had several soldiers when I was at Fort Irwin, California on my first assignment that got citizenship while they were there because they were in the military.
That isn't really, I knew this, but I think about this every now. I wonder, I don't think most Americans know that. Like, if you don't have to technically be a citizen of the United States to join the military.
Right.
If you're here legally, you can, and you will be a citizen. Like you'll get that. Yeah.
Yep.
That's really,
that's been, probably back when the Army was first invented that, that's been a stipulation.
Okay.
Yeah. And then a lot of folks don't remember as if they were alive back then, or don't know that, naturalization and citizenship was something that Americans before the Declaration, we wanted more control over, like who could be here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And England was very controlling over who could be here, who could, who could be deemed a citizen or whatever, and who had rights. So we wanted more control over and actually our immigration policies were very generous, have always been, I think, traditionally very extremely generous.
There are reasons why we have that natural born citizen clause in the qualifications to be president.
For the president, but as far as citizenship, I mean, I think our immigration policies have always been very, very generous. Not in like these damn libs or so,
No.
It's generous as a principle,
You want people who want to be citizens. Now, I want folks to come here the proper way, obey the laws to get here. But I do agree the immigration process now is a bit cumbersome and could be streamlined. But you want people who want to be here and will work their ass off to enjoy the privileges that we take for granted.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the aspect of you may not be a citizen, but if you're willing to join our military and go through some shit to prove yourself, we'll make you a citizen. Like, it'll actually, we're not going to test your IQ. We're not going to, it's not going to be something that you can't pass this test. You'll be able to do it and you'll be a citizen. And we really appreciate it. Yeah.
It's
and we think that going through that process, it's very unlikely that you will turn on us.
Yes.
If you go through this process and we are this generous with you. So it's
you're actually right on the money with that, Chris, because a lot of these folks are English as second language folks, and so they can't take the ASVAB or some of the other standardized tests that people that grew up in, they wouldn't understand it. They wouldn't be able to, the nuances, even if they could read English or they were somewhat, so you have to have a lot of stuff built into it. I had a platoon sergeant, Sergeant Holvane, who was Puerto Rican, and he was in the Army for, he said, 2 or 3 years before he could speak English, but everybody just covered for him.
Wow.
He told some funny stories about some of the misunderstandings, like when you're on the range and they say, lock and load, 1 magazine, and watch your lane. He thought they were saying Hovain, and he kept popping up out of his fighting position and getting in trouble. That's what,
I feel like, like there's a system there where if he was an incompetent soldier, they would not have covered for him. But
absolutely,
a competent soldier, and they knew he was a good person, so they're like, we'll cover. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, he actually made it to Sergeant Major, which is the highest rank you can attain as an enlisted soldier. So so our immigration policies have always been very both pragmatic and idealistic at the same time. It's something very special about our country. USA, baby. All right, so let's see. Starship Troopers. That's the voting citizenship thing.
Can I throw one out? We'll see if I can.
Yes, please do.
When this first came out, my dad and his fellow soldiers in Vietnam thought this was a comedy, and when I watched it, I agreed with him. One of the worst movies, and people are not going to like this, I'm sure, but The Green Berets.
It's bad. It's terrible.
Okay, that was like a Hollywood studio era war movie, right? Like Green Berets was what, 60s or 60s?
It was sick. It was like late 60s because it had John Wayne. My dad swore, he said when they watched it in Vietnam, they honest to God thought it was a comedy.
Yeah. Though, so I grew up watching movies like that, right? Like Green Berets, like Sands of Iwo Jima. Maybe that's better.
It's a little better, yeah.
Was there like a movie with like Richard Burton, like Longest Day or something? Like some of these epic
Longest
50s.
Day's on my list. Longest Day's actually on my list right here. It's fucking amazing.
Like these are like Hollywood, big Hollywood. I would say propaganda-ish. But maybe propaganda that it's like good propaganda.
But really accurate. Really accurate and shifted position throughout the fight from every side. It was wonderful.
Movies I love from back then, like I did have a stepdad for a short period of time. And I do appreciate that he got some really good movies for me from Blockbuster when I was like, I want to watch more war movies. But he brought home like a bunch of like Green Beret, Sands of Iwo Jima, Force 10 from, was it, what's the
Navarone.
Force 10 from Navarone? Was that Gregory Peck?
Yes.
There's a couple other ones, like there's one where they blow up a bridge. Alec Guinness, I think, like the original Obi-Wan.
Oh, Bridge over the River Kwai.
Yeah. Those types of movies he brought home, I was like, I loved them, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't take long to realize, like, okay, there's no blood. There's like no blood ever.
No blood. There's no guts.
People do die, but they never die bloody, or they never like lose a limb. Like,
right.
They just kind of die intact, and it's like I don't think this is die intact. I don't think this is how it really happens.
You know what my favorite
at the same time, like like if it is realistic, it's not going to ever be on the big screen.
Yeah.
Speaking of berets, one of my favorite movies with the beret. I don't think he's a Green Beret, but you guys remember that 1994 movie Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Oh my god, that movie's awful.
That's right.
I stopped watching Jean-Claude Van Damme after Bloodsport 2.
Yeah, I stopped after the first Bloodsport.
He peaked at Bloodsport.
Wait a minute. Time Cop. Come on, baby.
Oh, Time
Cop's a good movie.
Those splits. Yeah.
Time Cop is a movie that my wife uses as an example of movies that she was allowed to watch as a young child that she should not have been able to.
Time Cop's a guilty pleasure of mine.
That movie comes up often. Yeah. That movie comes up fairly often.
For no other reason than Mia Sarah gets naked in it. So.
Yeah. So
Russ grew up masturbating to National Geographic, so you have to understand he's got kind of a different view.
Hey, sometimes you get them faraway shots of like the nude beaches in Germany.
1 pixel.
Can I give you guys one of my favorites? It's more mainstream.
Please do. Let's hear some of your favorites, Robbie, and then also maybe some of the ones from that were thrown in the comments today.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. I'll go ahead and give one of mine. I've wrote a list, but I'll give you one of my top ones. As far as realism, I don't know. It was based on the controversy with Hillary Clinton is what is it, 13 Hours?
Mm-hmm.
I've
Is that the
never
one with
seen
Chris?
it.
Was Chris Pratt in that too? Or
No, Chris
No.
Pratt was,
That was John Krakowski, right?
oh,
yeah,
okay, the other
Christian's-
famous white guy that's super popular
Yeah.
and likable.
The other famous one guy, right?
it was a Benghazi story. Now, I don't know how realistic. Me seeing it as an outside guy, I liked it a lot. It was not to discount the actual soldiers and independent contractors and everybody else, but as far as a Hollywood movie goes, it was exciting. It was suspenseful. You saw some of the accounts that we sort of read about, and I don't know how truthful and realistic it is, but you saw kind of the waves of enemies that would come, and they would kind of protect themselves, reload, kind of rest, and then more waves of guys would come in. And as far as a watcher and a movie viewer, I thought that was exciting, and obviously, unfortunately, there were some deaths in that, event. But as far as the movie goes, I liked it a lot.
I think it's a lot like Black Hawk Down in that regard, that it's gritty and on the ground, and the camera angles show you, the close-ups and what's really going on the ground. All that, like Adam hates dust. It's all that dust. All that mortar in the air. I thought it reminded me a lot of the great things about Black Hawk Down, and I agree with you. I think it was very realistic, very well done.
Great.
I haven't seen it. It's on my list.
Incredible to watch. I mean, entertaining, like really impactful, but man, like hard to watch. Like Black Hawk Down is really hard to watch.
That's one of my top ones is Black Hawk Down.
I've watched it a couple times, but really, really tough to watch that. Yeah, because those movies for civilians like us, like really come the closest to like, oh man, like you guys don't have to imagine it, but for us, we have to kind of imagine. And those movies kind of put you in that place where like, holy shit. Yeah. Like,
it shows how overconfident we were when we went into the battle. They thought that the kids were waving at them, and the kids were instead holding up cell phones so that their hires could hear the choppers coming in.
Yeah.
It's very, very, Black Hawk Down is a very, very good movie.
One constant theme to war movies is always like politicians, like there's some exceptions, like politicians are always screwing the soldiers over. That's all. Like, I mean, whether it's Patton or Starship Troopers or whatever movie it is, it's like, yeah, there's always the politician. Yeah, that's screwing the soldiers over.
Well, speaking of themes, Russ said it also. Cell phones. In 13 Hours, there's parts of the movie where the guys, the good guys, they see the other guys with cell phones, and they don't know if they're calling the good guys, the bad guys. That you don't know, right? So they have to just kind of watch their body language, see what they're doing. So I'm sure being in that position, you have to assess the situation and just kind of, I don't know, take the best course of action.
Well, we talked about earlier, like there's the macro of like the commander in chief, and like, do I trust that, ultimate military commander with my life for the next 4 to 8 years? Will I sign up versus but yeah, I think Russ was saying that that wasn't as big a deal. Like, cause I watch a movie like that, like 13 Hours, like, I don't want to sign and get like where I don't know who the hell the enemy is, like where my government's putting me in a position where like, the people that I'm training one day are going to turn on me the next day, like stab me that's not a good recruitment movie. No. I wouldn't say.
Right.
And not only is the enemy like the people you trained yesterday, but also the enemy is your own government. That's like more worried about their election polls than they are your life
or how it appears on the news.
Yeah. And I don't like to watch those because it pisses me off, and it pisses me off fresh.
Right.
Like,
right.
It's one thing to like get pissed at Hitler when you watch one, like but it's like, oh, the person that committed this crime, against humanity is actually still alive, and they're still in the Senate. They just got a promotion. Oh, now they're the head of the Joint Chief. Like all these people that make these terrible decisions keep failing up. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, that's why the saying is "screw up, move up."
She ran for president in 2016. Oh, did I say that?
Yeah. I would like to say thank you to Hillary. I like. I mean, her overconfidence.
He was the only person in the country that Donald Trump could have beaten.
Was a gift. Yeah, her overconfidence was just a gift.
Yep.
Yeah, a gift. All right. So, what are some of our Facebook group members? What movies have they mentioned that we haven't talked about yet?
All right,
let's find out.
Yeah, let's go to the post right now. So, okay, so Jeff Lee, Full Metal Jacket. That one's awesome. My background right now on our video.
I was wondering what this background was.
I want your take. I want your guys' take on Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, Russ, Coop.
Okay, Full Metal Jacket, fun to watch. An enjoyable movie. Not realistic in the slightest.
I agree.
A lot of crazy stereotypes.
A lot of crazy stereotypes. Here's one thing, that when they're flying out to Fubai after the Tet Offensive, and the dude is shooting the M60 machine gun out of the chopper at the civilians. You know, even in Vietnam, you do that, you go to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What about the camp training? My Marine buddy Ed, he obviously was in the Marines, and he says that he remembers some of the guys would try. He would see they would try and injure themselves or try and get out the ones that couldn't make it. Or did you guys ever see any of that? Is that kind of realistic to you guys?
I've seen people try to injure themselves. I saw somebody getting a lot of trouble when I was going through Ranger School. One of the other lieutenants I knew stabbed himself in the leg with his Gerber to try to get an injury out, and he ended up getting all the way out of the Army when they found out that he self-injured to try to get out of Ranger School.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of the camp stuff, it probably was more realistic back when it was in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But most of that stuff now you are not allowed to do. I mean, to be fair, basic training in itself, and for the Marines, it's boot camp. It's not designed to just make you feel low and insult you. It's designed to toughen your skin and then train you how to be a soldier or a Marine. That's what it's designed to do. It's not designed just for a power trip. It's so that you know how to shoot, you know how to stay alive in combat, that kind of stuff.
In the movie, in the series Band of Brothers, the David Schwimmer, we know him as, what was he, Ross or Russ from Friends?
Ross.
That's what I said, Russ.
Ross, just release.
He was like the antagonist in the early episodes because he was their commanding officer that was a douchebag, that was terrible, that was treating them unfairly, but brought them together.
Yeah, well,
so it was like that was a big part of that movie, that commanding officer, even though he was incompetent and mean, like, it united the group.
Well, it's also in the book Band of Brothers. They asked the question to the soldiers who were remaining, was Easy Company so good because of or in spite of Herbert Sobel? And everybody who didn't say both said because of. One person, I don't remember who, said he looked the guy right in the eye and said Herbert Sobel made Easy Company. He was a great trainer. He just was not a good combat leader.
Right.
That was actually Dick Winters that said that in the book, Russ.
Yep. Okay.
The Dick Winters character in Band of Brothers, man, and like him in real life, because that was part of Band of Brothers was at the beginning and end of every episode, they would actually they would have footage of interviews with the actual soldiers, and age 90, whatever. Just, oh man, so impactful. Again, because they're all, it's just like the gravitas they have at that age, having lived it 50 years ago, but having 50 years to process it, I think, means something. Like, we, as humans, we know, like, that means something. That 50 years that the guys had is, means something.
There's one statement in particular I still relate to. I don't remember. I think it was, it might've been Malarkey, but, whenever it's really cold outside and here's like a storm going outside, it's like really chilly, he would always turn to his wife and say, well, at least I'm not at Bastogne. And any soldier who's been out in the elements like that, when you're back in the comfort of civilization, you always have that moment of, well, I'm not in Iraq anymore. I'm not, not in the heat, or hey, I'm not, freezing on a mountaintop in Ranger School anymore. That kind of stuff sticks with you. So that was some of the more realistic stuff I remember reading about in that book.
All right. So not like just kind of on this topic, but maybe a heavier subject. Like, so what are your guys' thoughts in general, just in general, on PTSD? And the reason I thought of that was because there's a lot more discussion about that now for recent conflicts, but there was an entire generation of soldiers that came back from World War II that, if it's real, they had, if it is a thing, guys have different feelings to degrees on that. Like a lot of undiagnosed mental illness like that, I don't know. Did we just ignore that for a generation?
Let me speak to that real quick, because I kind of in my lane. A lot of people. There was a oh shoot! Why did it just escape me? A novel written by a World War I physician, a British physician. His name was Lord Moran. Maybe you could look that up for me real quick. Anatomy of Courage. I got it. Where he was the first one to really die. He was living in the trenches with the British soldiers during World War I. He was the one that really diagnosed what became PTSD for the first time, and he actually came up with a modality of treatment for PTSD, which include surrounding them with the support of their fellow soldiers. Don't take them out to the hospital and make them feel ostracized. Treat them up front. If it's severe, then you grade the process. We still use that exact same process in the military that was devised in World War I to a very large extent. Because a lot of it works. A lot of it makes sense. When you pull a soldier out and make him feel worthless and take him away from his comfort and his family, that can have devastating effects. But
get him back in and let it work itself out almost naturally.
He identified that. He identified that back in World War I. Did it take the world a little bit of time? I mean, but you're talking about post-Freudian, before behavioral therapy and the Gestalt therapy and some of these behavioral therapies that branched off from it. You're talking fairly rudimentary ideas about what that stuff means. You're also looking at a generation of boiled iron men who did not deal with emotions or feelings, because that was not part of the culture either. So it's not all society's fault that we didn't identify this stuff, way back when.
Yeah, if you grew up in the Depression,
yeah, shut the fuck up.
PTSD is probably a little different because you were starving when you were 7.
Every human being in the country, except for the rich fat cats, had PTSD, and they probably did because they were getting molested by their rich uncles. So I'm just saying, everybody had PTSD. It's kind of the human condition to a certain extent. It really is. I mean, life
trauma. Yeah,
absolutely. Whether you get knocked around as a kid, or you witness somebody people dying in front of you, or you witness a car accident, or you lose all your money. Life is full of trauma, and so PTSD is kind of the human condition. And 22 vet suicides a day tell you that it needed to be completely emphasized.
Those numbers are. I got to be honest. Those numbers sound fake. Tell me they're real.
Well, they're actually not. They're actually not.
They're not fake, or they're not real.
Fake. No, they're not fake. These are not just studies, but meta studies that are done by Department of Defense, Veterans Affairs, done from primary sources like Stanford, a lot of these universities. These are meta studies done. Now, there might be some flexibility in the fact that, okay, this vet committed suicide. Is that because the vet experienced combat trauma, or because the vet had some underlying, there's a lot of... Yeah,
it could be going through divorce.
Well, yes.
That was caused by deployment or something, but it could be.
Sure.
And if you look at most of the vets who commit suicide, just real quick, they're usually between the ages of 40 and 49. So they're not like, it's not like active. Now I'm saying active duty soldiers do it, but in between the ages of 40 and 49, it could be combat stress. It could be financial stress. It could be marital stress. It's not all that.
So there could be some connection between maybe more of like military lifestyle, or like the type of folks that would have signed up for the military 30 years ago, not so much to do with like Iraq or Afghanistan.
Let me be personal about that. I'll tell you, my childhood was incredibly chaotic, and I did not have a stable home life. My very first time I felt part of a big family was the Army, and the regimentation and the discipline. I mean, I played football. I was a sports. I did all that. I was straight A student. So I was disciplined in a lot of regards, but the brain wasn't. And that really gave my, focusing not on me but my soldiers was a big part of that. So with my background in childhood trauma, it drew me in. It did. It felt like a place where controlling chaos was what I was taught to do in training.
Yeah. So like preparing, I wouldn't say the actual combat part, but preparing for combat was actually like soothing to your PTSD you had from growing up in a crazy household or whatever. Yeah.
I loved almost all of it. I really did. I just thought it was all fun. It was like, this is like Disneyland, except I get to shoot shit.
I'm being trained how to learn how to choke out the enemy, and it's very soothing to me.
Yeah, well,
makes me forget that I was hungry when I was 10. Yeah.
I shoot 40 out of 40 because I see faces on those pop-up targets, not just green pop-up targets.
Yeah. One of the things I want to say about the PTSD stuff is people are triggered by different things. You know, what one person finds traumatic, another won't, and vice versa. I mean, I'm affected by different things, but when it comes to combat, for example, I mean, this sounds almost perverse. I was kind of in my element. It almost kind of was calming to me because I could focus just on me and my soldiers needed to do to survive and win. I didn't have to worry about, all kinds of the rest of the world coming in. So that was my element. But there are other things outside of that element that obviously get to me. And so PTSD can be triggered by, like I say, it's a traumatic event. It can be triggered by almost anything, and almost anybody can have it. So, I know it's focused on the military because there's a lot of traumatic events in combat. The vast majority of people are not geared towards being able to handle that kind of stuff in such a short order. But others can be, and the things that other people that affect them are other different triggers, if that makes any sense.
Sure. So the numbers are staggering and real, but it's not necessarily like, maybe it's more of a, what is it, correlation without causation kind of thing. Like it could also mean that like folks that are career military maybe aren't the type of folks that would maybe seek out like a psychologist or like therapy or anything like that, maybe more adverse to therapy in general. So maybe because you're saying it's not like the 28-year-old that just got back, it's like a 40.
It could be, but it's normally
generally it's someone older that you wouldn't think is going to make a rash decision. Like this is more of a lifelong buildup and not like this happened a few years ago, so they did this. So.
Right.
But still, I mean, devastating number, I mean, like I talked about before, like, I read a lot of news and I do see those headlines about those numbers of like veterans and military members that commit suicide. It's like, I'll be honest, like, I'm less apt to click on those links, those headlines, because it's like, it's hard to kind of, it's hard to accept. Like, I don't want to believe it's true.
Startling statistic. More vets die every day on suicide on average than unarmed black men die every year in the United States of America at the hands of police officers. Yeah. That's actually statistically true.
Oh, I'm sure it's like probably blown out of the water like 100 to 1.
So it's
annually.
It's kind of, it's aggressive. The good news is, though, like being fairly involved in stuff, social media, and I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about the lack of civic groups, cultural belonging, tribal belonging within your comfort zone, your family, your community, how that's kind of disintegrated. And so vets have really flocked. There are more vet organizations, more, the counseling opportunities, community opportunities, group opportunities, motorcycle clubs, you name it, for vets than you could possibly ever understand. And that's a good thing. And they're well publicized. And, like VA care, for instance, it sucks to try to get it. It's fucking bullshit. But once you get it, it's excellent. It's excellent. It's some of the best in the country as far as, it's evidence-based modalities, and it's available. It is. For now, vets have to work at getting it a little bit. You have to try. It just doesn't come to you. But there's so many. I go to a Brotherhood weekend coming up here in a couple of weeks every year with guys I only see once a year. And it's amazing. Just 2 days, just the dudes. And it's like a year of therapy in 2 days. So there's a lot of that going on, thankfully.
All right. Well,
awesome.
I really appreciate that. Like your take on that. That's a serious issue. That's something that, I mean, if I'm just Joe Average, yeah, it's something that I kind of know about, but man, I really just don't want to think about it too often. You know.
Plus, you'd have a really cool name if you were Joe Average.
Just being honest. Yeah. My middle name is slightly above.
I have a question for you guys that might it's a little off movie topic, but it kind of maybe I like to play video games sometimes to de-stress and kind of relax. Do you guys ever play any video games, any war video games, or any non-war video games to kind of let loose? What do you guys do?
I do, yeah, Russ.
I've played them. It's I think one of the funniest things that just a quick story.
Russ still plays Doom 1. The original Doom.
WSAD. Click, WSAD.
That's right.
That's the only way to play.
When I was at the Command and General Staff College in 2007, a bunch of us went out to a Dave and Buster's one night, and me and this Air Force guy that is still a really good friend of mine, he's an F-16 pilot. We're playing one of those shoot 'em up games. And I don't even remember what it was called, but he had a couple of beers, and at the end, my score was triple what his was. And I remember him looking at me like, "Damn, how'd you get such a high score, Russ? You beat me by so much." I'm like, "Dude, I'm an infantry officer who's done this for a living. You're an F-16 pilot, and you've had a few beers. If I can't beat you, I need to get out."
Yeah.
One more
double or nothing on Top Gun.
Yeah. One more quick story. There's a guy that I'm looking to have on our podcast at some point, a buddy of mine from Iraq named Zeno, who also has done some sports radio in the past. And he was interviewing one of the safeties from the Baltimore Ravens. And it came up that Zeno had been to Iraq and deployed. And this schmuck from the Ravens said, "Well, I've played Call of Duty a lot. Is it kind of like that?" And Zeno said,
"It better not have been Ed Reed."
Yeah, no, Zeno came back with, "Well, I've played Madden a lot. That doesn't make me ready to be an NFL quarterback."
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you Robbie? Are you a Xbox guy, PS guy?
I'm more of an Xbox guy. Yeah, but I have all of them. But I'm more of an Xbox guy.
What's funny is I'm kind of injured. I tore a ligament in my back, and I've been basically sitting at home or in the river for the last week with the dog. I got back into Skyrim the other day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I got my Viking on. I tend to I like kind of the squad leader type World War II stuff, but if it's real modern, I don't get into it. But I like going to war, but I like being 300 pounds with the shield and
for sure,
and doing the quests and all that shit. So that's kind of my thing. Or the science fiction ones too. Mass Effect. I played through all of the Mass Effects.
Yeah.
They got to have a little bit of a story to them. I don't like just shoot 'em ups that don't.
Yeah.
My best guess for when Call of Duty and games like that are most realistic would be when you've been playing Call of Duty as a civilian. You've been playing Call of Duty in your boxers for 22 hours. You're sleep deprived. You're beginning to hallucinate. You haven't eaten. You're dehydrated. Maybe you're taking some drugs. And you start having some real crazy paranoid thoughts. That's probably the closest that Call of Duty comes to, actual combat. When you're
Chris,
when you're losing your mind.
Chris, you and I can probably relate on this. I'd love to play a lot more of those games, but I have these little people in my house called children, and it takes away from my video game time.
Yeah, my son's my son found I had a copy of Red Dead Redemption, so he's wanted to play
it. Baby.
Yeah, and I'm just and he's always wanting me to help him. I'm like, dude, if I start helping you, I'm going to play this game and you're out. You're out.
Yep.
You're out. You're not going to be happy.
Well, I have girls, so they're playing Dance USA, and I'm not up there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I told my son when he was a baby, I used to play Red Dead Redemption, Call of Duty. When he'd be asleep in my arms, I'd just be holding the controller. He'd be asleep, but now he's aware. So yeah.
You know what? I'm a big fan of just kind of shoot the breeze and kind of, just have some fun is on the iPad or my iPhone. I like those real-time strategy games where you can decide, right? You're the guy that decides I'm going to put a barracks here, my troops here, the tanks here, when they go.
Yeah. More like resource management, time management.
Kind of. And then you see them as they kind of march or as they go or as they fly. Like there's a game called I Bomber. That's pretty cool. There's Tower Defense, something. Even Star Wars has a real time strategy game. Those are pretty fun.
I never thought Age of Empires games are cool as far as like kind of like because they make you progress through like the technological history of military things, and you kind of have to like and it takes a while, so you start to pick up little things like, oh, I see, they couldn't do this until they invented that, and then they stack that on anyway.
Eons ago I would play StarCraft. I'd play it online with some friends of mine. And I remember once I frustrated the hell out of them because I set up a no joke defense in depth, based on how I understood to set up a defense. They cursed me. The way I won was they ran out of resources and ran out of soldiers at the end from impaling themselves on my defense. So I just kind of marched over their bases there at the end, and there was no resistance because everybody else was dead.
I mean, those are the games that are good for, like you have to be good at the decision making. And because if you kind of mess up at one point, you're dead, you're going to lose because you mismanaged your resources. So I like those types of games. I mean, shooting, sure. And all that stuff.
There's things like, just like the hard realizations, like, oh, you can't have an army if you don't also have farmers.
Yeah.
Like you need to feed them, or they just start to die on you. It's like, oh, okay. That's kind of how the world works. Yeah.
Return to cannibalism.
Refineries for gas. Yeah.
That's right.
Age of Empires 7, they brought in cannibalism where people just start eating each other. That's the next stage.
The one thing I cannot do, and I cannot stand people who do it and get into it and spend money on it, is fucking paintballing.
Oh, really?
I've never paintballed. Yeah, I've never done that before.
I grew up with firearms since I was little, and taught by my dad, who was the Army champion at one point when he was in the Army. No kidding. And so I was blessed with that. And anybody that understands the military watches these paintball homos out there in their. Oh my God! I mean, seriously, girls. Seriously, girls, really? And there's like 6-year-old kids out there, have their dads buy them the $3,000 repeater paintball. Yeah, this is realistic. Yeah, if you go to Civil War, you're going to get shredded the first time somebody's behind.
All right, I'll stick to laser tag. How about that?
In like the late 90s, early 2000s, I almost got into paintball because I worked with some guys that played paintball, but I didn't because like I realized like I'm just starting. They've been doing this for 2 years and they've got all kinds of shit. Like I'm just gonna get. They're just inviting me to light me up. Yeah,
they get like tattoos of each other's face on their asses and shit like that. They're cool.
I'm just gonna get lit up. Yeah.
In fairness, when we were teaching ROTC, I would take the paintball guns sometimes, and in order to teach the cadets the individual movement techniques, we would use the paintball guns to shoot at them because they actually would get down and crawl properly if there's stuff flying over their heads.
That's just creative training, though, Russ.
I think it's weird because it's way too much civilization pretend for people, but at the same time, there's a little bit you can learn from like that adrenaline that pump, like you said, like when something's flying over your head, you're just like, oh shit, like oh, and then you start to think like, I bet if you're in real combat, it's like it's got to be 100 times worse. So it allows a civilian to kind of like imagine a little bit like, whoa, if I was scared then over nothing, just over bragging rights, like, yeah, imagine how scared you'd be if it's your life,
And bullets sound differently going by you in real life than they do on TV.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's like there's probably a weird world where that gets people into this fantasy world of nothing's real, you can never die, whatever. But there's also like there's an element of like you learn what it's like to be a little bit scared, and then hopefully imagine what it's like to be a lot scared, and then hopefully maybe you achieve some position of power, and you're a little less likely to vote for let's go to war. Let's do all that stuff. Let's send our troops to.
It's be worth it.
Yeah,
or at least make a little bit more informed decisions about these things instead of, I'm really good at stratego kind of decisions.
What I would like is what I would like, I'll admit what I would like is a kind of a fantasy. I would like the government just to be straight with us and be like, look, here's the deal. Like our future our future, your kids' future really depends on, and the world's future kind of depends on stable energy prices. Like, I know it's boring, but like the human civilization progress depends on like having stable energy, supplies of energy. And bottom line is we're going to do some kind of ugly stuff, like some stuff that's maybe immoral or wrong or seems wrong, because like we got to look out for that energy supply, because that's how people stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we have very unstable energy sources and food sources, that creates famine and mass death.
So you want the government to be straight with us? As long as we're wishing, I'd like to have a 10-inch dick in a curve.
Right. Well, it's a fantasy on two levels. Then I'll admit it. It's a fantasy on like they're never going to be straight, and if they were straight, how would people really react?
Yeah.
Like I like to, like an individual person is smart, intelligent, can be reasoned with, but people and like millions of people cannot be reasoned with.
No.
I got to tell a quick war story, and it's not a war story. Russ will probably remember this. My teaching style is exactly what you hear on the podcast, and when I was teaching military history and some leadership courses at the college, and I got in a little bit of hot water a couple times. Although I got a great. We were talking about the resource thing. We were talking. My history course wasn't just dates and battles and names and shit like that. No. You got to fit it into a worldview and a strategic view, and talk about the evolution of things. And so we got around to talking about that. No blood for oil, and I'm like, you what? Everybody always sheds blood for oil, and it's a perfectly legitimate thing to shed blood for, because as a soldier, it's my job to make sure the American citizens' livelihoods are protected. And if they're paying $20 a gallon for gas, that's a problem. And and it was kind of funny. Some of I had a lot of civilian folks in my classes too, and had one kid coming up to me and goes, "Thanks for the best talking point ever. I can destroy my liberal buddies now with that," and it was kind of funny. But I got in trouble. Russ probably remembers this. I subbed for our boss who was teaching the seniors. The colonel was always teaching what we call MS4s, or the fourth years. And they focus much more on like joint task strategic, philosophical stuff. So I filled in for him one week, and we were talking about, he wanted me to teach the curriculum right off the slides, which I didn't do very well. I didn't like that. I kind of mavericked it. And it said something about, respecting learning as much about the culture of the indigenous people as you possibly can is a mandate. And I asked the students, I'm like, do you know why that is? And they're kind of like, well, I go, no, to exploit those motherfuckers. That's why you got to learn as much as you can about them. So you can play Jedi mind tricks and get your fucking way. That's it. And then my boss heard about that, and there was a conversation about it.
A little too honest. Yeah.
But it's true. It's absolutely true. I mean, at the end of the day,
I try to teach my trying to teach my son like the reality of the world, which is that, it's very easy to be very a reductionist and say that all war is fought over real estate. It's like, okay, well, the cold hard truth is you need real estate to have farms and to grow food.
Yeah.
Like you need real estate because under that real estate, there's like minerals and oil and natural resources you need. So it's like, so basically these reductionists are like trying to make it seem bad. It's like, but we're really just talking about food and reliable sources of resources that allow us to live and progress and have bigger kids and safer. It's like, it's easy to kind of it's just the human condition.
Well, it's like when people say no blood for oil, ask them how they feel if they're freezing to death in the winter.
Yeah. It's like, it's a really reductionist and simplistic and stupid thing to try to boil it down to that, because oil, keeps you warm. It cooks your food. It allows the hospital to have the electricity on so that your baby can undergo its emergency surgery. Like, oil does some pretty awesome stuff.
People who say stupid shit like that say it from a position of comfort and ignorance.
Right. Like that. It's like a fantasy world where like, well, for me personally, my oil is ever flowing. Like, like you're just like we're talking in the abstract to them, but it's like, no. That oil is used to grow the food that is on your plate. That now next year it'll be $10 instead of $5.
Yeah, Robbie,
anyway. Yep.
Robbie, you're exactly right. Those real-time strategy games, they do a pretty good job of kind of opening the mind up to exactly what you're saying about.
Yeah.
Russ can correct me, but a lot of people have a misconception about the Army or military. For every gunfighter like Russ out front putting rounds down range, there's something like what, Russ, 17 to 18 in the logistics trail to support that
it
one.
varies between 12 and 20.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, it used to be 20. Now it's 24 because they got those LG, the pronoun commercials they're running.
Yeah.
So it used to be like 20 logistical soldiers to every one fighter. Now it's 24 because of all those commercials.
Her, and they count as 3 soldiers.
Yeah. But you made it. We'll wrap it up here. But you made a good point on your last episode where that you already had the perfect non-binary pronouns or whatever in the military, which is ranks.
Yep.
Right.
Your sergeant, your petty officer, your private, whatever. Those do not have a masculine or feminine. They're non-gender, right? Or whatever the hell. Yeah.
Does it bug anybody when you watch science fiction like Star Trek or that have some kind of pseudo-military and they call the women sir as well?
Yeah, I mean, not like that in Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah.
It bugs me. It bugs me a little bit, but
and it's not a sexist thing. I just think that's not a diminutive. You don't deserve it. I mean, we have words for female officers.
Like ma'am.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I kind of like that because it makes you think. Now that's dangerous because some people may think the wrong thing, but it's kind of like there's a weird thing where you're acknowledging that the masculine. It's a very strange thing because you're in those shows. It's like a term of respect to call the female officer sir. Like that's how it's portrayed in those shows. Like it's
it is.
Yeah, but
it is.
It's also like kind of a
feminist though. If you think about it,
it's also an admission that the masculine is superior.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's exactly my point.
Real quick, when I was at airborne school way back in 1993, we were all in the day room watching Star Trek Next Generation, and one of the female admirals was dressing down Captain Picard, and he stood up. And this is a room full of people who don't know the context. And he stood up and just said, "Yes, sir," and everybody was like, "Oh, damn! He just dissed her by calling her sir." I mean, it was
yeah. So I don't. It does bug me a little bit, but in like a second later, it doesn't bug me that much because it's like there's a weird like duality there that should make people think, but it doesn't. Yeah, so
it doesn't. You're right.
It bugs me that people don't think about it. That doesn't bug me that it happens. Anyway, guys, been a pleasure.
We've been long.
There's movies we haven't covered, but there's always
learned
the
a
next
lot
time.
though.
Stay alive, and we will discuss this again.
Yeah. Maybe next time we'll talk about the differences in civilian perceptions of military and reality.
That sounds like another good episode.
I'm tempted to say, Russ, give us a 1 minute overview, but that ain't.
No, I'm not capable of a 1 minute overview.
That's not what you do. That's
no
not your
crying hands,
specialty.
Coop. Go screw yourself.
Thanks,
I need
guys.
to ice and lay down and watch some Netflix.
Yeah, I gotta.
Or Netflix, or as we like to call it, porn.
Little Netflix and chill. I got you.
Hoo-hoo.
All right,
So they're
boys.
watching cuties.
Let's wrap it up. Robbie, do you want to do all the social media stuff?
Yeah,
let's focus on. Yeah, okay.
So to follow you guys, your Instagram account is 2 Grumpy Bastards at 2 Grumpy Bastards. That's one word. Obviously, if you want to check out their podcast, just go to any of your favorite podcast streaming apps and just search 2 Grumpy Bastards. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. Do you guys also have a Facebook group that people can apply to join? I'm sure there's a couple questions, and as long as they know that you guys know they're not bots, you guys will let them in. Any other accounts that you want me to let people know about?
Those are our most active ones. Yeah, we do have a YouTube channel, but we haven't posted there in a while because of my various ailments and all that kind of thing. But we will be starting next week.
Okay.
Awesome. Tell them about our merchandise, Coop.
What's that?
Tell them about our merchandise.
Oh yeah, 2grumpybastardsmerchandise.com, and we do have a Patreon. A Patriot Patreon that doesn't exist.
That's I knew it. It is the Patriot front
page, which is also at 2 Grumpy Bastards. So
awesome.
We're easy to find.
All right, just easy to find. Just search 2 Grumpy Bastards. If you guys want to check out the social media for Endless Ranters, for Instagram, check us out at Endless Ranters Podcast. At Endless Ranters Podcast, we post memes, we post things where we're up and coming. If you want to check us out on Twitter, just go to at Endless Ranters. At Endless Ranters. If you want to join our Facebook group, we post memes, we post topics throughout the week, and we have conversations. Just search the Endless Ranters Podcast, and then there's a couple questions. They're pretty easy. We'll let you in. If you want to follow Chris, just search at Grateful Red 1. That's the number 1, Grateful Red 1, and you can follow him on Twitter. If you want to follow Manny Mole Man on Instagram and Twitter. And the podcast, it is at How We Figure. Just search How We Figure, and you can go ahead and follow him. If you want to follow me on Instagram and all the other social media accounts, just search Robbie Spotlight, and then I'm easy to find as well. And that's pretty much it. Also, YouTube channel. Those watching us live, thanks for watching us. Those listening right now, just search Endless Ranters on YouTube, and you'll find us. Go ahead and click on subscribe, like, comment, and all that good stuff. And we appreciate you guys listening and watching.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks for joining us.
We look forward to the next time. Yeah. Look forward to the next time. Not sure when it'll be, but it'll definitely happen. Oh, I just saw a Family of 3 posted Kelly's Heroes. That was on my list of like borderline war movies, but just one of my favorites. That movie. Yeah, love that movie. Yeah. All right, everybody. Appreciate you hanging in there with us for so long. Big thanks to Russ and Coop and Russ, 2 Grumpy Bastards podcast. Everybody get it on.
Get it on.
Get it on, everybody.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
All right. Wow, that was a long one.
I kind of figured that happened. Coop's like,
he's like, I'm out. I got to take the dog out.
Like I said, I've been drinking beer since I got home, so I've had to go to the bathroom a couple times.
I'm gonna need to go to bed because I have to get up and go to work and take my daughter to work tomorrow.
I think we're all there. Thanks, Russ. Good to see you again, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You too, man. Take care.
Take care.
Cool.